Well, okay. First of all, I'd like to recognize the unceded. We're on unceded traditional territories of the Hoopchesset and Taoiseach territories, and late items identified by council. Nope. Late items identified by the city clerk.
Yes, Madam Mayor, a couple of items. One being delegation number 2 from Mr. Keith Ambrose. He will not be speaking to the Harborview Apartments, but will address the activities in the Uptown Core. Another item under F4, 3 pieces of correspondence, all expressing opposition to the development variance permit that's on the agenda this afternoon. One from a Karen Benny, another from Daryl Gretchen, and the third piece of correspondence from Irene Austin. And another piece of correspondence to be added under item J, number 4, correspondence for information. And that's a letter from Mr. Richards and Miss Miles supporting the 3rd Avenue beautification, as well as the trail connecting Harbor Key and Victoria Key.
Thank you. Am I supposed to press a button? Councillor Haggard is online. She's on holidays and she's joining us.
Hello, Councillor Haggard.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. You're in the meeting.
I'm good, awesome. Sitting here ready to go, wondering why you weren't calling, so I'm not sure what's going on. But anyway, I'm here.
Thank you.
Welcome, Councillor Haggard. I hope you're enjoying your holiday. And of course, I'll be asking you your vote when we do have a motion on the table.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so somebody want to approve the agenda approve as circulated, the agenda and the late items? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Adoption of the minutes as of page 7, special meeting held at 12:30 p.m. and regular council meeting held at 2 p.m. on February 10th, 2020. Somebody want to move adoption? Sorry, Councillor Haggard.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
There is an error in the regular council meeting minutes.
Go ahead.
Under correspondence for action item number 2 from Transport Canada, it said the motion was approved, but I remember saying that we were going to refer that to the regional district because it was beyond our scope.
CAO?
It was identifying the places of refuge.
Is that, go ahead.
The direction that we received was actually that we'd move forward as is, but we would write to the Port Authority as well as the ACRD and requesting that if they were going to have representation, then that the city may reconsider participating. So those letters have gone to both those organizations outlining that.
Councillor Haggard?
I didn't hear what she said, I'm sorry.
Do you want to try that again?
I'll take her word for it, whatever she said.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Next is public input period, an opportunity for the public to address council on topics of relevant to city council, a maximum of 4 speakers and no more than 3 minutes for each person. Does someone want to say something? Yes. Could you say your name and your address, please?
My name is Tim, 2836 2nd Avenue. I live in the area and I'm here to speak against the 3rd Avenue revitalization, whatever you want to call it. I see it's on the agenda. I see there's people supporting it. I live in the area. I walk the area every day. We already have 5 or 6 foot sidewalks uptown. We have, the proposal has less parking. There's no provision for logging trucks because we still don't have a truck route. So we're still going to have trucks going through. I would say that if we're going to spend money in the area, that we should be encouraging more stores which then will revitalize the area. Putting lipstick on a pig does not make the pig prettier. The other thing is that the city should encourage more stores. I'm not sure exactly what that would entail, but I think that that's a better route than spending $1 million to put in more walking, less parking, and not taking away the problems. Again, we're dealing with problems of homelessness. We're dealing with drug use. These people need help, and they're not getting it. So I would encourage the city to stop before spending any more money on proposals or anything else, and take another look at the whole situation. Thank you. Questions?
Anybody have any questions? No? Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Asking once, I'll ask 3 times. Anybody else want to say anything? Come on up. Can you come up to the microphone, please, sir? It's because it's on streamlining.
Okay, so I'm.
Your
I'm
name,
on-
sir?
I just wanted to make sure you have me.
Excuse me? Could you just tell me your name and your address, please?
Oh, Daryl Gretchen.
Okay, and where do you live?
6150 Westport
Thank you, Daryl.
Boulevard. So I had a question. So do you have me scheduled to speak on item number 4, the planning, the variance?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead,
Um,
CEO.
Mr. Gretchen has written a letter regarding an item later in the agenda, and there will be an opportunity for him to speak then.
That's when
Okay.
I should speak.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Anybody else have a question or want to say anything to council? Going once, going twice. Anybody else? I know I'm not auctioning. I'm doing the auction for the Bulldogs on Wednesday. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That ends our public input period. Now we have delegations. We have Chris Washington. I'm sorry. I went with her maiden. Flying Dangles Kitchen and Gifts, Gibson's Fine Linings. Do you want to come up, Mrs. Washington? That brings you back to way back.
Yeah, way back. Well, not that far. My apologies. I'm very nervous today. And that's the most nervous I've ever been speaking in front of council because I'm very passionate about this. But thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, staff, and members of the public. Thank you for giving me your time today. And I am going to read this. I apologize for that, but I want to stay on point and I want to stay positive. The negativity about the revitalization of 3rd Avenue has compelled me to come and speak to you. That's not me, right? Okay. Originally, I had intended to speak as an individual and as a small business owner. However, Carolyn Phillips from Forever New and is my co-chair on the Uptown Merchant Society, or Association, pardon me, thought that we should come to you and also let you know what the feelings of the owners of the Uptown Merchant Association are, the members, my apologies. I want to be clear that we do not speak for every owner, only those who choose to belong to our group and have their voices heard in that forum. And I believe you're going to hear from somebody else today that believes he's speaking for the others. We are open to any licensed business group from the Harbor Quay to 8th Avenue and Kingsway to Mars Street. We meet monthly on every second Tuesday at 8 a.m. at the Steampunk Cafe. We last met on the 11th of February, and the main topic of discussion was the revitalization. Concerns were raised about closure of businesses, parking challenges, etc. Discussions ensued, and the general consensus was, even in the face of these challenges, support for the project. Small business owners can deal with fear that change creates better than most. Will I make enough money this month to keep my doors open? Will this strike affect my business so much that I will be forced to close or lay off staff? How do I adapt so that my business will survive in this era of Amazon and online shopping? Will this revitalization hurt business during the change? Will this new addition, purchase of my building or expansion be successful or kill me? Will the perception of crime on the 3rd Avenue stop customers from coming through our doors? These are the fears we live with every day as business owners. In spite of all of these fears, or perhaps because of them, Businesses continue to grow, change, and move to the 3rd Avenue and Argyle area. Some do not thrive for various reasons, but the majority do. We have invested in our community and continue to do so in these challenging times. Stagnation will only lead to greater social and economic crisis than we face today, and certain slow death of our community. What is true for an individual is true for a community. If it does not transcend the status quo for the better, it changes for the worse. One of the most dangerous illusions we have is that we can stand still and not alter anything. However, by the sheer act of standing still, we begin to decay. They say change can be fearful, but stagnation is lethal. My apologies. Very dry mouth. For those of you who do not know who Ray Kroc is, he purchased the McDonald's Brothers restaurant at the age of 55 and started a franchise empire. His famous, regularly repeated favorite quote is, "Are you green and growing, or are you ripe and rotting?" Our lack of investment by keeping taxation at so low over many years has brought us to this level of breakdown and the necessity for a greater increase than years past. Thank you. There are several points that I would like to make at this juncture. When Flandangles went up for sale, and after a year there was no buyer, my husband and I purchased the store. For us, it was pivotal to our community, and we did not want to see it disappear. Since that purchase in November of 2015, we have invested over $300,000 in our community. Annually, we contribute over $100,000 in wages, and from that, we are able to hire 2 full-time and 3 part-time employees. Our landlord has stepped up and painted our building, put on a new roof, and paid for new flooring, a cost close to $100,000. This is only one business. Multiply that by dozens. Council is planning to leverage funds from other governments to aid the 3rd Avenue revitalization, which will not be available to us if we are not even willing to invest in ourselves. Our existing tax base cannot sustain the infrastructure that we have created. It is essential that we show the world we are willing to change and grow in order to, attract a greater tax base. The 3rd Avenue revitalization is not being done in isolation. If it was, it would not work. The proof of that lies in what has been done in the past and learned from. Thankfully, it is part of a 5-year strategic plan to move the entire community forward and create revitalization throughout Port Alberni. People need to remember that this is only the original or the first step. Look at what our tax dollars were able to accomplish on the Johnson Road corridor. In the spring and summer of every year, we appreciate the beautiful planters that line the sidewalks as we drive by or visit our local businesses. They create an ambience that invites the passerby to stop and explore. Once again, they were only the start. Still, there is more to be done. The entire 5% tax increase proposed means that the average household will be paying approximately $80 more a year in taxes. That equates to $6.67 a month, less than 2 cups of coffee. That's the entire tax increase. That's not the investment in the uptown. I stand up here fearing that some of our customers will not return to our store because they disagree with me. We have already had a visit by one individual, not a regular customer, that said, should this revitalization go forward, she would no longer be stepping foot in our store. Despite that fear, I am up here standing, talking to you today. Yes, we need to continue. Skipped ahead. My greater fear is that a few highly vocal community members and a fear of change will have council rethinking their original plan. If we are to postpone, or even worse, cancel this project, it will signal the end of any progress by this council, just as it has done for many councils past. Yes, we need to continue to work with other governments on homelessness, which I know this council is doing. Absolutely, we need to work with other governments on the opioid crisis, the increase in crime, and the lack of mental health assistance. Yes, we need to develop a truck route. There is much that needs to be done. We are blessed to own a business that we do, and we love our customers. Over the last couple of weeks, we have heard both negative and positive comments about the changes. The majority of the negative comments do stem from the parallel parking and not the project as a whole. We have reminded people that our community already has parallel parking on Johnson Road, a highway, and that this is the safest type of parking. During our existing parking setup, we have had pedestrians nearly hit by speeding cars and cars backing up. Multiple buildings have been run into. Our store alone has been hit twice by cars and was narrowly missed a third time, but for the grace of a light standard. As we fear that you are only hearing the negative, we wanted to make sure that you hear some of the positive. And these are direct quotes from some of my customers that we have heard in the last couple of weeks. I am so excited. I can't wait to see what the changes will bring. This is such a lovely area. The improvement can only make it better. I'm new to town, but I can understand why this area needs these changes. It's about time this happened. These businesses deserve to see some changes up here. And finally, have people not been to other communities and seen what a vibrant core does for their town as a whole? I'm going to talk to you about 2nd Avenue in Qualicum. 2 lanes, parallel parking, funky, nice walking area. 5th Street in Courtenay. 2 lanes, parallel parking, nice walking area in Courtenay. I have one final comment that I'd like to make because we had a customer in this morning, and she said, I think you need to take this to council today. She said, I visit this area, I like this area, but we need to see this change up here. She said, and I think the changes will attract more stores and make people want to come up here more. And I thanked her for that and told her I would share that today. So we are hearing positive. So thank you for your time, and please, and my voice is going to hit chair because it did when I tried to practice this. Please, please do not become a council that accomplishes nothing. Don't fear criticism, fear stagnation. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody have any questions? Thank you. Next is the Uptown Urban Market. Keith Ambrose.
Okay, so my name is Keith Ambrose. I do have the Uptown Urban Market, but I'd like to clarify some things. I'm not here on behalf of the Uptown Urban Market. And by the way, first, thank you very much. I appreciate that it's difficult to stand here at this podium, and I agree with 99% of what Chris Washington just said. Okay, so I'm not in opposition. What did cause me to be here was my frustrations as a Port Alberni resident and a businessman. But I'm going to separate that. I brought with me some signatures. I went around Southport. I haven't made it to Northport I had some personal things come up and just haven't made it. But I just got some names of businesses. I got about 40 of them here, and all they say, and this is what I'm asking. I need to get more involved. That's why I'm asking. So it just says right here, we, the undersigned business owners, wish to forward Keith Ambrose as our liaison between us and the city. Now, I take liaison to be messenger. We carry a message back and forth. I just want to carry their letters, and if they write letters, I would just carry them and hand them, and then city councilors could get a better view. Because I can tell you this, a lot of these businesses aren't on Facebook. They're out of the loop. They feel out of the loop like myself. The city council meeting is not available to them. They're working. Facebook's not the place for this. And, the old-fashioned methods are dropping off. I'm going to use email to notify anybody of something I learn. So I've learned a few things, and then this city council has fixed one of them. One of the things I learned is Island Health was going to demand 3 floors of a builder, 3 different builders. One dropped out because Island Health demanded 3 floors of their build on our nice little hill with the trees. Thank you very much, City Council and everybody in Port Alberni, for saving those trees. The Eagles are having a second baby this year. So we did the right thing. We saved that hill. Now no developers want that. I don't know what Island Health wanted. So that's one of my concerns. So I just want to give you this. It's not a position I'm asking for. It's not, and I'm not wanting to be a representative of anyone. I'm going to take any letters that are given to me, hand them over to the city, and then I step aside. I don't have to read them. They don't have to agree with me, in my opinion. They don't. That's not what this is about. I just want to get involved a bit, and then the other ones are groups. You have a group of Uptown Merchants Association. I joined that group. The other one is the top of the hill there at the Tourist Bureau is our Chamber of Commerce, another group. Okay, and a lot of businesses, some that signed here belong to both those groups, and a lot of businesses don't belong to anyone. But the chamber speaks for all of us, and they don't differentiate. Right? They all, everybody's in favor. So here's some paperwork supplied to me by a citizen. It's the last Uptown revitalization paperwork, all the costs involved, the one we did, all the money we spent Uptown, and I'm just going to pass that on too for you guys. Not against revitalization, absolutely not. I like what Chris said. There's some problems though. I was there, and I was told the agenda, the motivation. It was the block logging trucks that had nothing to do originally with the Uptown revitalization. And I'm against log exports 100%, but I'm not against a woman or a man driving a truck legally. So that's just the wrong purpose. That roundabout was wrong. That was the block trucks. The narrowing of the road seems only to block, and yeah, she's right, 5th Avenue and 2nd Avenue. Those towns already had those streets, and you can't create paradise without addressing your real issues. So I'm a person, I just walked up here. I saw a couple of good things today. I saw a cleanup crew that came out of the New Horizons Center and came up my street, and and they're doing a good job, but they can't possibly deal with the biohazard that's in the back alley, and they don't go there, I don't think. So great for them, great program. That New Horizons is a great neighbor. Some of the same clientele I have that some other neighbor, the soup kitchen, but they behave differently when they get to that soup kitchen, trust me. So the Harborview Apartments was mentioned here, but that's not the subject matter I wanted to mix in here.
Keith, can you get to the subject matter?
Yes, I'm seeing some real social problems in the downtown core, which are going to overwhelm any business opportunities. The downtown core also has office space, which maybe should have been zoned for 2nd Avenue or 4th Avenue, and you're not going to get a business if the office space occupies your retail, which should be retail space. And that's one of your big blocks on that one block of 2nd Avenue is all those buildings are occupied with offices that belong on a one block back. So I'm not against revitalizing. Anything you do uptown will benefit the whole town, no question about it, except when you start, if your agenda is to block logging trucks, if that's still alive, then you're going to create another issue for us, a big one. And Anderson Avenue will suffer the fate. Dunbar Street, where that bicycle's tied to that pole, that's an intersection that, a logging truck with a pup full loaded, man, that's not pleasant. I ask you, if that's still on the agenda, all councillors need to take a ride in a fully loaded logging truck through this town. I'm sure I could arrange that for you. So my point, and I don't know where my minutes are, is that we have issues uptown. We all have common issues, all us businesses. We shouldn't be apart, and we shouldn't be against each other. I was trying to rectify that to show you that I think we should all be one, and I talked to Mrs. Washington, and I came to terms with her that we're not against her. I don't want the job, actually. I just want to become involved, and I know that we have problems that are beyond this council, and they are federal and they are provincial problems, but somebody's sending these people here. The last time I spoke, somebody came up and diminished everything I said about what was happening. Bus loads, and don't look for the bus. Please don't look for the bus. Bus loads, I see them. They're not from our catchment area. They're not from a Howsett, Ucluelet, Tofino, Bamfield, or Nitnat Lake, or Port Alberni. They're coming in here, hardened street folks, and they have real problems, folks. I can't protect my property line anymore. I'm a business in retreat. I'm going to be fortifying like that bank. You're going to see shutters. You're going to see barbed wire. My neighbor asked to put barbed wire between us. I said, do it. I tried to soften this, but we're going back.
You need to get to the conclusion.
My point is, we have problems, and we could spend, a lot of money on this town. You can beautify anything you wish, but if you're not going to look at the problem, that street is filled with crime every night. It's filled with crime. All your properties walking down 3rd Avenue and the alleys between every night. You have businesses that are encouraged in Port Alberni. Don't have business license. I'm surrounded by businesses with no business license. They're out earning me by unbelievable margins. I sell carrots, for God's sake, carrots. So without a business license, my neighbors are operating all kinds of businesses right? And if you want to help Port Alberni, let's rectify the marijuana stuff. Let's look at that. Let's get them regulated. Let's get them sorted out really quick. There's no need for delay on this. And as far as the drug dealing goes, we could do something about that too, folks. And I want to have an in-camera meeting with you and explain where we went wrong and where we could correct it. But it's not a meeting for the public eyes. I don't want to name names and everybody's upset. I want, like everybody, I want us all to be happy. I want us to develop. I want us to beautify. But I don't want us to block logging trucks.
Time to wrap up, Keith. So we have a short agenda, but we need to wrap up.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And we're going to just hand over. Our next is Kinsman Club. We're talking about the Soapbox Derby. And welcome, Mitt. Do you want to say your name and your address?
Sure will.
Thank you.
Mitch Gardner, 5323 Highland Drive, here on behalf of the Port Alberni Kinsman Club. Mike Hadley was to attend, but he's happily back to work at APD. As many of you know, our association is 100 years old, and the local club 84 years old this year. Originally started by Harold Warren, who ran the cable station and theater in town years ago. But reason for here is once again to ask our official permission to close Lower Argyle Street from 3rd down to the tracks on July 25th so that we may host our 4th annual Soapbox Derby, which this year they're going to change it up a little bit. Going to make a shorter run for the kids so they can get more turns. And then in the afternoon, Dan Washington's going to get in a cart and compete against Cindy.
I'll
Maybe.
win.
Anyway, through the afternoon, they're going to allow for some adult runs, so we'll have an opportunity for the big kids to play too. So we appreciate your support and close 3rd Avenue July 25th.
Thank you. And we actually hung the flag out on the
Yes.
city poles this week, so it was kind of cool after all these years.
Commemorative flag all across Canada, every Kinsman Club, over 400 of us raised our centennial flag this past week. So.
And I always wanted to be a racing car driver, and other things. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Poston.
I'm so excited about this. There's a few of us that had Soapbox Derby just after the Key opened, and Ken Whiteman and myself and Jennifer Dyson ran soapboxes down the same stretch of road. So I would love to read the motion if I could.
Go ahead.
I'd be excited to. I'd like to move that the email dated January 28, 2020, requesting the use of 3rd Avenue to the tracks on Lower Argyle from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, July the 25th for the Soapbox Derby be received and the request approved, and I'm so excited that the tradition continues.
Seconder? Questions now. I do have a question regarding the signage plans. Last year there was some problems with the signage. What's happening with that this year?
This year we're going to strike up more people on the committee. There were start off as a smaller project, and it's kind of growing, and we've convinced a couple of the key players that we need to build the committee so they have more help, and many hands make light work. And
Well, we learned from the first,
Yes.
yes. And the second question is regarding the merchants there. Will you be in contact with the merchants to let them know, like give them advance notice?
Yes, we always go out in advance to remind them of what's coming up and give them some signs for no parking, so anybody who has a vehicle parked on Argyle has a chance to make sure that it's not there on Saturday morning.
Okay.
But everybody's been very cooperative, and it's worked out very well.
Okay, and third and final question to staff regarding insurance. Will they, as always, anybody that has anything on our city streets will be looked after with the insurance, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. I know it was a
We
great
can provide a copy of our certificate of insurance through our association as well.
Sure, staff will look after all that. And I know last year it was a great response, and everybody loved it in the community that were involved in it. So we have a motion on the floor. Any other questions? So call the question. All in favor? Councillor Haggard?
I happily support this motion.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to unfinished business. Any unfinished business? No? Okay. Staff reports. Members of the public may be recognized. Okay. So accounts. Who wants to do that? Dan. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that certification of the Director of Finance dated February 24, 2020 be received and checks numbering 145639 to 145711 inclusive and payments of accounts totaling $2,490,629.63 be approved.
Second. Any questions? A motion, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Haggard, I'm assuming if you don't say anything, you're going to be in favor. So just in case we miss you.
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay. I'm sure you have no problem speaking up if it's not. Okay, next.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, just procedurally, we'll have to always ask
Okay,
Councillor
I'm going
Haggard.
to ask you. So, okay, next. Director of Parks and Recreation, and she is coming forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city's 2019 to 2023 five-year financial plan includes the planned replacer of the evaporative condenser in 2020. This financial plan also includes $240,000 for this purchase, with the funds allocated from gas tax reserves. A public tender was issued in January 2020, and you'll see on the bottom of page 20 of your agenda package the four tenders that were received, or proposals that were received. So this tender process aligns with Council's strategic plan and the priority of providing and maintaining quality services. And also the city's purchasing policy states that in January of each year, staff are authorized to proceed with the tendering and purchase of capital projects and equipment to the extent that those projects and equipment items have been approved for the current year in the prior year's five-year financial plan. So for that reason, Council's authorization for early budget approval for this item is not required.
Questions? No questions? Look at that. No questions. Somebody want to make the motion? Go ahead.
I'd like to move that Council for the City of Port Alberni award tender number 001-20, Alberni Valley Multiplex Evaporator Condenser Replacement to Accent Refrigeration Systems Limited in the amount of $205,950 plus GST, with the funds provided from the city's gas tax fund.
Seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Any questions on the motion? Yeah, okay, I'll start right here.
Just maybe you could expand a little bit on what exactly is the evaporator condenser and what's its function.
Absolutely. So, Madam Mayor, the evaporative condenser is the final step in the refrigeration process. So this unit actually lives on the roof of the multiplex as opposed to in the ice plant itself. So at that point, the condensing portion of the evaporative condenser will condense the refrigerant to recycle back into the system, and then it will exhaust excess heat. So what we're able to do actually in our system is we do use excess heat to heat our domestic hot water. So meaning that, as you notice, as the heat is exhausted from the roof of the multiplex, we've actually been able to harness some of that energy and use it to heat our domestic hot water on site.
Okay.
And for anybody who walks the track recently, they can actually hear that thing, and there's a bearing or something going to go on that because it screams.
That's everything?
That's everything.
Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm assuming we couldn't get anything closer to home as far as contractors came?
So Accent Refrigeration, so no, the four, Fraser Valley Refrigeration, Simcoe, Georgia Strait, and Accent were the four that bid on the projects. And we currently use Accent Refrigeration for other projects on site. So we're comfortable maintaining a relationship with those folks.
Anybody else over here? Councillor Haggard, any questions?
No questions, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I have a question regarding replacement. How many years before we have to replace it again, and is there a warranty on it? I'm big on warranties.
Yes, so Madam Mayor, we are mandated to replace this unit every 20 years. So the current unit was built in 2001, so we're right on schedule that it's nearing its end of life, but is still within a reasonable replacement timeline. And then the warranty on this unit is 1 year, which is standard across industry for this unit.
1 year, wow. Yeah, I'd buy the extended. Anyways, okay, so we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion? Councillor Haggard?
I support the motion.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, a report from the City Clerk on McLean's Mill Society dissolution. City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this report is to request that Council appoint a representative to act for the member at a general meeting of the McLean Mills Society. As Council is aware, the McLean Mills Society was incorporated under the Societies Act on December 8th, 2016. Its purpose, amongst other things, to operate and manage the McLean Mill National Historic Site and to promote heritage tourism in the city of Port Alberni, and the Alberni Valley. With Council's recent endorsement of a 3-year agreement with the Chamber of Commerce to operate the non-historic zone of McLean Mill, the Society in its present form is no longer required. The Society has one member, and that is collectively the City of Port Alberni, and currently has 6 directors. The general meeting of the Society is scheduled for tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., and it is recommended that Council appoint the City Clerk to act on the members' behalf and vote on the resolution that is required to formally dissolve the Society.
Questions from council? Somebody prepared to make a motion here? Go right ahead, Councillor Poon.
I move that Council appoint City Clerk to act for the member at the general meeting of the McLean Mill Society scheduled for Tuesday, February 25th, 2020 at 10 a.m.
Seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
And questions? I do have a question. And I believe I believe the McLean's Mill Society are aware of what's going on, and it's not like suddenly they're going to get a notice and that's it. So, Councillor Haggard, do you have any questions?
Not a question, just a comment. Can you please ensure that you thank the volunteers for all their hard work and the number of hours that they committed to the McLean Mill, and thank them for their time and their efforts.
Good point. Thank you. And it's been duly noted. Thank you. Okay, we're going to vote on the motion. All in favor? Councillor Haggard?
Yes, I support the motion.
And the motion's carried. Okay, next. Manager of Planning, CEO, Development Variance Permit 6151 Russell Place. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we have a report from the Manager of Planning. Unfortunately, she could not be here today. So she's left some notes with me to represent. I need to let you know that representatives of the proponent are in the room and prepared to speak, and we know there are also members of the public in the room who would like to speak, so there'll be opportunities for both of those. This is Development Variance Permit number 98 for 6151 Russell Place, and before you for consideration is an application for a Development Variance Permit to vary the maximum height and the maximum number of principal building stories from 3 stories to 5 stories at 6151 Russell Place. The subject property is approximately 3.5 acres in size and currently houses the Rainbow Gardens Care Facility. The proposed variance would enable an additional 39 units of social housing targeted to seniors living in the Alberni Valley to be developed on site. The proposed development would be built on the remaining developable area of the site at the southwesterly portion of Lot 1. A geotechnical report found that the soil most suitable for development is nearest the western edge of the property. Since the heavily sloped area of the undeveloped property is not suitable for development, the applicant wishes to build a higher building in order to still achieve the certain number of desired units on site. And you can see on the screen, you'll see pictures of the proposed building. The proposed building will be set back from both Moore Road and Russell Place and located along the west edge of the property. The building will be located in a low-lying portion of the property, which will mitigate the visual impacts to the neighborhood. The development will also be attractive and modern in style, which will contribute to the appeal of the neighborhood. At a January 27th, 2020 regular meeting, City Council received the Advisory Planning Commission's recommendation, and notification was given as required by the Local Government Act. A copy of the Notice for Development Variance Permit number 98 is attached to the manager's report in your agenda package. And the Planning Department and the Advisory Planning Commission both support the issuance of a Development Variance Permit in this case.
All right, any questions to the CAO? No? Any late correspondence or correspondence? Go ahead.
Yes, Acting Mayor, you have the 3 items on the lime green paper.
And it's in the back if anybody hasn't picked any up.
Yes. Yes, thank you. And I'm just going by memory. Rennie, I believe. Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Karen Benny, who's expressing opposition to the proposal. Daryl Gretchen, who has expressed opposition, as well as Irene Austin.
Okay, thank you. And I will ask the applicant if they would like to say a few words. They may come up. Just give your name when you come up, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. My friend Dariush Farasley is the architect, and I'm the project manager.
Do you want to state your name too?
It's a secret. John Jessup.
He'll answer Aaron anything.
Sorry.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I thank the CAO for the background information on the project. I just want to review essentially the targeting of the development, which is for low to moderate income seniors. And it's going to be funded by the BC Housing and Aboriginal Housing Management Association. And it differs from the previous program in that the subsidy is deeper. And instead of just being able to provide rental units at roughly 90% of market value, which BC Housing calls low end of market value, this project will actually have 20% of the units, approximately 7 or 8 of them, as shelter allowance units at $375 a month for seniors 55 to 64 years of age who are on welfare. There will be 50% of the units, or roughly 19 or 20 units, that will be at what we call rent geared to income. And basically that would be rents around $625 a month. And what that does is seniors of lower income will essentially have a means test, and we will calculate their gross monthly income and ensure that they pay no more than 30% of their gross monthly income towards rent. So 19 or 20 of the units for seniors will be targeted to that income group. Now the remainder, 30%, it would be about 11 or 12 of the units. That will be provided at what we call low end of market rent, roughly 90% of average market rent in the Alberni Valley. So there's quite a diverse range of incomes for seniors that are allowed there. I've been working in affordable housing for 40 years, and I think this is an ideally targeted program for both social and economic reasons. The other thing I want to say is we don't come here today lightly requesting a height variance. Dariush and I usually like to work within the zoning parameters that are laid out for us, but in this particular case we're kind of forced into a difficult situation. The zoning allows the use, the zoning allows the per unit density, but the zoning does not allow us to exceed a height of roughly 3 floors. And what happened with the geotechnical investigation that looked at the load-bearing capacity of the site? They said basically that there was a limited area that we could build upon where the load-bearing capacity of the soil was adequate to support the building. And this meant reducing the footprint of the building and moving it towards the west and increasing the height. So before we were proposing to build a 3-story building, which a much larger footprint, but because of the geotechnical conditions of the soil, we're being forced to reduce the footprint and increase the height in order to get the proposed number of 39 units. So that's our situation. It's not really a matter of building less units. We think the cost of the what I would call the sub-foundation of the building in these difficult soil conditions is significant, and we have to carry this fixed cost over the number of units in the building. So in order for the development to be cost effective, we pretty well need roughly the number of units that we're proposing, 39 to 40 units. Otherwise, our cost competitiveness is significantly reduced, even though the society is offering the site at zero cost. So the costs of the site really are the extra cost of the sub-foundation we're required to build there. And we need as many units as we can to allocate that fixed cost to ensure that on a per unit basis, the project remains cost competitive. So I'm going to say no more. Mr. Farasley may have something to say, Darius, please.
Thank you, John.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just go with a couple of the point, Mark, and it's very short presentation. As John mentioned, we started with 3-story and it was longer, but those parameter in terms of the soil condition push us back. We make it 4-story, and then still we were not in the good area. We have to put it right now, the building sitting right at edge of that area. The soil capacity is available. This building actually will be sitting in the lower portion of the property. Is all trees removed. The existing tree, one row of the trees right at the property line. As you see, this is basically putting the rendering on the real picture. Exists right at the edge of the property line. So we did request the height in the recent building RG20 built in higher portion. That building geotech elevation is 24.5 meters. Our building sitting at 12 meters high, plus 17.71, which means overall we are 29.71 meter height, 5.71 higher than the RG20. Means we are just a story and a half higher than that building just recently built. So overall is 5-story, but looking at the contents is not all 5 of the 5-story building at the top is actually lower. And because the building sitting at north portion of the property, sun movement is not create any shadow to any neighboring. It just shade will be in behind the building and retaining wall and existing building inside the complex. So overall, as John mentioned, we pushed to get to this situation, and we tried.
Sorry, they're just talking in the background. Councilor Haggard? Okay, we're good.
So we try to do our best to basically minimize as less effect to the neighboring as well as the site planning. So if there is any question, I am here to answer.
Council, questions? Yes, go ahead, Councilor.
Well, I think you answered the one question I had regarding the viewscape. If I understood that correctly, it'd be a story and a half higher than the existing building?
Correct.
The other question that one of the writers raised was the idea of erosion or water runoff, and I know that area is pretty steep. Have you got any concerns regarding water runoff going down towards River Road?
This project basically, in order to start, we have a 2 row of the retaining wall, first to establish that slope before the building. So with those 2 retaining wall and having the drainage behind those, we will eliminating all those erosion issues.
That's it, Councillor Corbett? Okay, Councillor Poon?
Thank you. I'm in support of the concept of this project, but my concern is the height. Is it possible to build smaller units while maintaining the same number of units and then lowering the overall height of the complex?
The units, the majority of the units, they are 1 bedroom, 550 square feet. So it's we have, I believe, 4 just 2 bedroom, if I'm not mistaken. So it's already units that are smallest, and they meeting the BC housing requirements. The BC housing, they have a very thick guideline requirement, and they are very restricted in the size of the units. They are really in minimum size, unless to do the bachelors.
I just wanted to emphasize what Darius was saying. In discussions with BC Housing on another project, when we proposed studio units, they said to us that it's been their long-standing view that senior citizens prefer to have 1-bedroom units. Gives them a little more space, gives them privacy when they have guests and company. And I know when I worked for the city of Vancouver for almost 30 years, every time a seniors group came forward to the city, they said to us, "We're sick and tired of living in these small studio units. Please, in the new developments, give us 1-bedrooms." So it's quite a, this is BC Housing's position, and I think it's well-founded, actually.
Anything else, Councillor Poon? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I get the Deputy City Clerk to go to page 29, just to show that drawing? That one right there, thank you. So my question is, if I was standing on Russell Street looking towards the development, am I going to see all 5, or is the first floor and a half? The other drawing makes it look like it's quite a bit lower, so my sight line from Russell would be, I wouldn't see 5 sets of windows, I would see...
At least 3-story. This Russell Place is higher than the lower portion of the property.
Yeah.
We do have a ramp going up to the Rainbow facility in higher elevation, and we're creating another ramp going down to this building. It's around 3.5-story. From eye level, probably maybe 3-story.
Okay. That's what it looked like on the drawing, or on the conceptual drawing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Councillor Washington? No? Anybody else? Councillor Haggard?
No questions, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I do have a question regarding Rainbow Gardens itself and this particular piece of development. Will they be working together?
Yes, we've got to the point where the term they use is a seniors campus of care. And so the main facility that was built in about 1994 has about 30 complex care units. Then about 10 years ago, the assisted living addition of 10 dwelling units was added. And then to the same building, in the last couple years, a 13-bed complex care addition was added to the other side. And in addition to that, we've just completed that 20-unit seniors 1-bedroom units in that long single-story development. And so this, in conjunction with the new proposal, it will all be managed in a comprehensive way by West Coast Native Health Care Society. And what we're dealing with is a comprehensive integrated management and operations plan. So because all these facilities will be located on the same site, essentially, it will be much more efficient and cost-effective to manage and operate. And as the seniors age in this new facility and require hospitality services and or personal care, Rainbow Gardens is able to provide that because they have that infrastructure now established there.
And what about parking?
One of the good things about parking is with the building being more compact on the building footprint, there's more space, I think on the east side, just off Russell Place, for more surface parking. And as much as we'd like it, we can't afford to build underground parking facilities in affordable housing. So we must provide surface parking. And I forget what the ratio is in Port Alberni.
1 to 3.
1 to 3. So, you know, for every 3 units, we've got to provide a stall. So we've certainly got
Yeah, we got
over
all
13.
That's
haven't
correct. May I add a couple?
Go right
Sorry. First, very good question regarding the complex. We built the Kiwanis similar complex in Nanaimo. These facility being all close together is working very well together. Basically, age in place. They move from one building to another. I was lucky enough to working on RG 30, 14, 15 years ago in the same site. So these are all is very great working together to complex wise. In terms of the parking, we provide our 13 required parking from Russell Street. We also planning to add 8 extra from Moore Street from the back where we build the retaining wall. There will be additional 8 parking added to the complex.
So about 19
More.
parking spots, roughly?
Is 13 plus 8, 21.
21?
Yeah, it's higher than what's required.
Okay, it's just that I know some people are saying there's no parking up there with the staff and different things like that, so I'm just kind of curious to know, just so the public knows.
Yeah, if we go to the site plan, I can point it out, the parking location if necessary. It's, in right-hand side, this picture is not clear, but the 13 parking shows coming from Russell Street, from the bottom in front of the parking. We do have an entrance from the parking to the apartment. Also, there is in second floor access to the
Can we wiggle the cursor around just so the public can see? Because I'm lost too, so it'll be great for me. The parking.
Yeah, parking is, if you go to right-hand side, the apartment right there. Yeah, there is 13 parking over there, an entrance to the apartment in the lowest floor. And from the second floor, we have access to the Rainbow Garden in the same location. And Moore Road is in the left-hand side of the building, bottom left corner. Over there, we are providing secondary access plus 8 parking over there. These 8 basically is in addition to what's required for this building.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going through the emails that we got, the late emails, and Miss Benny's talking about a park, the park in front of Rainbow Gardens. Is that your responsibility, or is that somebody else's responsibility?
You're talking about the new building that...
The playground, no, the playground area that was existing there.
Okay.
And we said she's saying that we told them we'd replace it. I'm just wondering whose responsibility. Is that the city's responsibility, the developer?
Rainbow Gardens can speak on it, I believe.
I just want to know who's responsible for it.
Sure.
Well, sticking my neck out a little bit, I think Rainbow Gardens owns the property, and it was they that made the commitment to retain that portion of Lot 2, which was recently purchased from the city, as a neighborhood park. And I know they're working. The problem is BC Housing has enough funds and allows you to build the building and minimum amenities on the site to serve the tenant population. But when it comes to developing neighborhood amenities on adjoining parkland, BC Housing won't provide you any funds. So I know the society is now working pretty hard to try and find alternative sources of funding to develop the park as a more intergenerational playground. And they weren't able to include those costs in the BC Housing capital budget. You know, it's just I know the landscaping costs that we looked at between the new complex care and the new seniors housing. It was $250,000, and you know, BC Housing says, well, yes, include whatever amenities you can, but the problem is, and the bottom line, when the cost crunch hits and you've only got so much subsidy coming in to keep those rents down, something has to go. So I know the society's concerned about this, but it's their financial responsibility, and not the city's, as I understand it, and they are continuously scanning the environment to find sources of funding to make good their obligations to the community. So, no, I don't think it is.
Just to clarify with the CAO, was there anything in the contract when it was signed over and everything stipulating when? And I know because they have phases of doing what they're doing, the construction. I mean, of course, that's minor at that moment.
Madam Mayor, I don't recall the details of the agreement.
Okay, that's fair enough. Just so take note that the public will not forget, right? That's basically what it boils to. Any other questions from council? Anything else you want to add before we bring up the public?
No, I can't think of anything.
Nope. Anything else from the board of Rainbow Gardens? No? Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So we're going to ask members of the public to come up. When you do come up, please state your name and address, please. Go ahead.
Hi. Excuse me. My name is Tom Fulton. Excuse me. And my wife and I live on Moore Road on the property adjacent to Rainbow Gardens. Actually, if you had page 29 up there, you can see our house.
Okay, we'll put it up.
So just to the very left is where we are. And we certainly have a few questions. We don't necessarily disagree with, providing seniors housing. We think that that's actually a good thing. The height of 5 stories, I'm not really sure if it's going to be like that building's in our front yard or not. And, I don't really have a good sense of that. And we've really had quite a limited time to actually understand what's going on. We got the notification on Tuesday that this was happening and had no idea at all up until then. So, and we went over to Rainbow Gardens to take a look at the proposal and did not think it was very clear about what was actually happening. For example, we didn't find it clear at all that access would be off of Moore Road into the parking, which is a concern. We wonder if there's going to be a lot of traffic. One of the reasons we moved there was for the privacy, and how much of that this is going to take away. It's not really clear. So the 5-story height, is it going to be like somebody's in our front yard? One of the other concerns too is that slope access and the retaining wall, it wasn't clear to me on what I'd seen from the information provided at Rainbow Gardens, if that retaining wall was actually going to be built or if it was supplemental, because in the description they mention it as being supplemental, and we didn't understand quite what that meant. So, you know, if you look at the property line, the slope goes down quite a bit, and there's a concern, will that slope be degraded? Or is it going to be set there? Also, the other thing they mention is the trees bordering around that, that retaining wall. Are they supplemental, or are they actually going to be there to provide some privacy to the neighbors from the complex? So this is very new. There are a lot of questions, obviously, you know, and some concern about what is really happening with this, and very little time to actually look at it and try and understand what it's going to be. And in the future, will there be the possibility to actually gain more understanding of this, or is this a done deal? So those are my questions.
Any questions from council? No? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I have a question for the proponent, though. So is it appropriate to ask at this time, or?
Pardon me?
I have a question for the proponent. Is it appropriate to ask at this time?
Yep.
Am I done?
Yes, you can sit down. Thank you. Maybe they can come back up. Let's answer, maybe you can answer some of the questions this gentleman has at the same time, since it's important. Go ahead, Councillor
I'm just
Kuhn.
wondering, to what extent will the existing trees be protected on the development site? And to what extent those trees are crucial to holding up the slope?
Well, I think the answer is most of the trees on the site have been removed. And it's not clear in my own mind what trees remain. But I can say that we'll be hiring a professional landscape architect, and I would propose to the owner, Rainbow Gardens, that we consider landscape such as it might protect this gentleman's property and give privacy in both directions. The other thing I wanted to say was with regards the bowl area, if you look at the subject property there, and I say the bowl, it's because there's kind of a crescent shaped area there. Part of the development, part of preparing the site for the building will be a terraced retaining wall to provide a nice outlook actually for either neighbors behind or seniors in the development looking out on that side of the development in the lower portion, you know, on the main floor and the second and third floors, looking out towards it. So we are required to stabilize that bank, and we will do this with either a reinforced concrete or a concrete block retaining wall designed by either a structural or geotechnical engineer that will be terraced and landscaped, so it will become an amenity for the development. Darius, you might want to add anything?
Yeah, it's just few things. As John mentioned, the majority of the trees removed. One row in the south property line, which is they are very high trees, is remaining. Morse Road, compared to the Russell Place, around 2 meters higher in terms of the elevation. So gentleman home is almost 2 meters higher than Russell Place. And the retaining wall goes around, as John mentioned, around Bowl, create the access from more road for just 8 parking. All it is not connecting for rest of the property, is just connecting to that portion to provide 8 parking. And the reason that retaining wall make it as a 2 series to create the 2 landscape area to provide the trees. So as John again mentioned, there is landscape architect will be involved, and we are already showing the trees in these, basically in lower portion, in the mid section, and in the top of the retaining wall with the tree, providing the tree in this area to minimize the effect on the neighbors.
Answers your question. Council, anything else? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't go far. I'd get comfy in the chair there. Definitely. Next, come on up. Next, who? Your name and your address, please.
Daryl Gretchen, 6150 Westport Boulevard.
Go ahead.
So I have my letter with me. Can I read that?
Yes, go right, whatever
Well,
you wish.
Before I read it, I'd like to say a few things. I'm completely in agreement with the purpose and the spirit of this property. Rainbow Gardens is a quiet neighborhood, but not in the last 2 years. We've just undergone the throes of heavy construction. My property, our property, Amarjeet Pohar and I, is just on the top of your screen, and it's property number 6. So the new development, it's been right in front of us, and the property 5, 4, 3, 7, and also down Russell Street, and also the people in Russell Place have been heavily compromised by the construction beginning in July 18th. Dust, noise, light pollution. The dust is in every house. There's nothing you can do about it. The noise, the music from the construction workers, foul language from construction workers, noise of machines, beeping 10 hours a day, people working on the weekends as well. So one of my issues is with the timing of this project. So soon, I have no idea when it's going to begin, but it's so soon. Just completed last fall, so it's been peaceful since maybe November of last year. And so no one's looking forward to more construction another year or 2 so soon. So timing is an issue. Another issue is back to the park. We purchased our property before any of the new development occurred in 2000, in June, July 2018, and the park, the green space of the park was beautiful and welcome. Westport Place, as you drove up Russell Street, there was the Westport Place sign, and it had been part of that subdivision. The green space, the children's park, the recreation area for some time, and that was, if you research that, it was quite a bone of contention beginning in 2015. Well, it's gone, and so in my research, the Rainbow Gardens, representative from Rainbow Gardens explained that they would create a playground. It would be in front of properties 4 and 5, or across the walkway from 4 and 5. That would, and local children would be welcome. There'd also be a pickleball court that residents could use, Westport residents could use, but also exercise, outdoor exercise for their guests. That hasn't, and at the time there was a motion from the council to put that in writing. That Rainbow Gardens put that in writing, and the motion was defeated by the then No, that motion was defeated. The then Councillor Sherry Minions said she trusted Rainbow Gardens to build that park. Well, that hasn't happened yet. So I find it strange that the park's not there yet, but there's a proposal to build another building on the property. Probably my personal greatest concern is the extra stories, the extra 2 stories. So from our property 6, 5, and our property 6, from 5, you can see the mountains. You can see the mountains and the horizon looking due south. But at 5 and at 3 stories, we could still see the mountains. We walked down, I looked in the site, figured it out pretty well. At 3 stories, we could still see the mountains and the horizon. At 5 stories, we can't. Not a chance. It'll rise a good 2 stories and block those mountains. So from property 6 on the level, looking to the south, there'll be at least 2 stories of that building interfering with our viewscape. When we moved to Westport Boulevard, first of all, Westport Boulevard's a very nice subdivision. It's well planned, well lit, nice walkways, people walking all the time. Everyone's friendly, everyone talks to one another, a real neighborhood, and which was one of our attractions for moving there. When we did move there, lots of friendly people, we met everyone, met many people, and everyone's happy there. But the one disgruntled aspect to everyone we met was the fact that they lost their park. They lost that green space and are concerned about losing the green space, the forest to the right of the picture. The city wants to develop that. So green space. I think it's providing that variance from 3 to 5 stories is setting not a good precedent for our town. So I'll just read my letter. The purpose of this letter is to state our objections to development variance permit number 98, which proposes to change the required maximum height of a building to be constructed in our neighborhood from 12.5 meters to 7.71 meters and from 3 stories to 5 stories. Also, it appears that if this variance is granted, construction will soon begin. It just appears that way. I don't know how true that is. Our property on Westport Boulevard is adjacent to Rainbow Gardens, as are residential properties on Russell Street and Russell Place. We have been the most affected by the dust, noise, and congestion during the past year, during the construction of additions to the Rainbow Gardens complex. To hear that additional construction is in the planning stages so soon is sad news indeed. The fact that DVP number 98 will enable Rainbow Gardens to build 2 stories beyond the permitted 3 is doubly troubling, and that our skyline view would be compromised. Westport Place is a lovely, well-planned subdivision incorporating illuminated paved walking paths bordered by a beautiful wild forest. This forest, which the city is currently trying to sell to a developer, is now Westport's last green space because in 2016 the city sold the children's park and recreational property, which has been part of the Westport Place ambiance since its beginnings, to been sold to Rainbow Gardens. Westport Place residents pay very high city taxes. We pay them not grudgingly because we live in this beautiful place. To continually subject us to a bombardment of construction and removal of our green spaces constitutes profoundly repugnant treatment. Back in 2016, when the city gave our park to Rainbow Gardens for its expansion, $163,000, it was explained to Westport residents that there were plans to incorporate an everyone welcome children's playground and recreation area within that expansion. This has not come to pass, although former City Councilor Sherry Minions quote, trusted that Rainbow Gardens would do as they said they would do, unquote. To summarize our objections to DVP number 98, first, regardless of circumstances, it is setting a bad precedent to vary the maximum height of the building from 3 to 5 stories for reasons of reduced horizons and viewscapes in future Port Alberni construction. 2, it is simply too soon to subject nearby residents to further construction pollution chaos. And 3, Rainbow Gardens should build the promised playground before proposing additional expansion. Well, that's all.
Questions from council? Nope. Thank you very much. Does the developer want to say anything?
Madam Chairman, my thoughts are as follows. We have to develop the affordable housing when we have the opportunity, and it just happens that the current government in power has launched its most recent, it's called Community Funding Program, and we're worried that if we don't take advantage of it while the funds are available, that we may lose this window of opportunity. And not wishing to make a political statement, but during the period of time that the previous government was in power, the only opportunities we had for affordable housing development was assisted living, which Rainbow Gardens took advantage of, and then closer to the 2010 Olympics, homeless shelters. So what you have to do is kind of be cognizant of your opportunities, and you know, at any moment the current government could lose its grip, and its funding priorities for affordable housing be lost, and we would be facing a site with development potential, but nothing really to show for it. So it's always, we regret the inconvenience that we caused the local neighbors. However, there's only one way to develop property and build a building, and unfortunately there's always going to be complaints. One of the good advantages of the last development, and we hope for the former development, the present development we're proposing, is that the site superintendent was a resident of the neighborhood and did what he could to ensure that one, that local people were hired wherever possible, and also that security was maintained on the site. But at the same time, you know, with regards to weekend construction, here we were pressing them to keep to their construction schedule, and sometimes that required getting scarce trades into the buildings during the weekend. So I think that's about all I can say there.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Next person.
Carl Barnwell, 6120 Russell Place. If we can bring that screen up a bit so that we can see Russell Place on it. So they're talking that this is going to be 5 floors, and people are worried about it being too high. I can tell you from Russell Place, where they plan on building it, you will see all 5 floors. There's no two ways about it. You will see it. The first floor will be down in a gully, but you will still see it from Russell Place. If you stand in the parking lot of the existing buildings, you will see a minimum of 3.5 floors above ground. Minimum. There's no, they can't say any different. Second, my biggest concern about all this, I understand we need low-income housing for seniors, and I'm all for that, as long as we can get a guarantee that that will strictly be for seniors only. We don't want the low incomes, with the kids and everything else in our area. That area, the majority of us in that area bought those places because it's a nice, quiet area. There's next to nothing for crime up there. And that's our big concern, is if it opens it up to anybody that's on low income, that our area is going to end up becoming like parts of downtown, parts of other areas where the crime starts picking up more and more. Another thing is the parking here. They say that they have a 3-to-1 for parking. That's fine, 3-to-1 for residents. What about all the staff that work there? I can't tell you how many times that I've come home and I've had to park all the way down around the corner on Westport Boulevard and walk home because there is no parking at my house. I have a driveway there. There's 4 of us in our house, my wife and I and 2 kids that all have vehicles. You put 2 vehicles in the driveway and you got 2 vehicles on the street. And as soon as you pull anybody out on the street, somebody's there parking. And when we come back, there's no way to get back in there. You're looking at putting in another 39 units with only 13 parking spots, saying that that's going to be adequate. It's already not adequate. If you were to go to Russell Place right now and look at that road, at the end of Russell Place, in that cul-de-sac, there is 7 vehicles parked illegally against the trees there. The lady that lives at the end of the road, she has a little carport, portable carport with a van. 5 out of 7 days, she can't get that van out because of the way somebody's parked. The back end of their vehicle is blocking her from being able to get out. During construction, I had to go out and numerous times park a vehicle as soon as somebody left, park it, hoping that nobody would squish in and take up all the spots along the road, and leave room that when my son got back from school, my wife got back from doing groceries, we had a place to park. And when she got there, I'd move my vehicle so that she can get back in. And people still parked and would park so that the back end of their vehicle was right across our driveway. During construction, every time there was a delivery there, you had trucks that parked right in the middle of Russell Place to unload everything else. The construction workers, they had no place to park on site, so they parked all along Russell Street and Russell Place. My big concern is the parking there. Is there not a way that we can make one side of that road, which is away from their new developments and everything, for residential parking only, so that people that live along these roads actually have a place to park when they come home from work, come home from school? There's no reason why, if I buy a house there, that I have to park 2.5 blocks away to walk home because 1, I can't get in my driveway, or 2, there's no parking anywhere along that road in front of my house, because it's all construction workers, it's all healthcare workers, it's all people that are residing there. There's got to be something done in regards to parking. Now, Russell Place is only a small road. There's a stop sign on the corner for Russell Place to Russell Street. And I can tell you right now, there's been at least 6 times that my wife has almost got hit by cars walking our dogs with people coming around that corner, because nobody slows down. They whip up that hill, and that Russell Place is right at the top of the hill, so you can't even see down Russell Street. They right in there, and all of a sudden there's a vehicle coming, so they got to punch it. We're crossing the street to walk our dogs, and all of a sudden we're in front of a vehicle that's going at least 3 times the speed limit, because he's trying to not get hit by somebody coming out of Russell Street. That is a speedway, Russell Place. And I invite any one of you to come down there during the week and just sit there with me and watch the vehicles that come in and out of that place and tell me that there's adequate parking for anybody in that building. You're now talking of putting over 100 units in that place, and there's parking for 40?
You're talking about the new existing building?
All
unit.
3 of them. There's like 40, maybe 50 parking spots for over 100 units, plus 20, 30 healthcare workers in that place. You know that every single healthcare worker in there has a vehicle. May not every resident that lives there, but every one of them that works there has a vehicle, and you know it. So that takes up half of their parking right off the hot, just by people that are working there. Where's everyone else going to park? My front lawn? The neighbor's front lawn? There is not enough parking. And to make Russell Place the main entrance for all that now you have traffic coming into Russell Place for 100 units of people living there, over 100. And then you have 20, 30 workers there as well. So you have a minimum of 60, 70 cars every day that go through that little part of that street. I understand with more, people don't want them coming in from that side either. I understand that because they'll run into the same problem as us. Is there not a way that on the back side of the property somewhere, they can make an entrance into this thing for the old unit as well as the one that they just finished building? Or there's got to be some way we can do something about the traffic and the parking. It's anyone, come and stand there with me for 3 hours, any given day. And you will see there's no way that we can put up with another 39 units with only 8 parking spots
21,
on one
21
side.
I believe it was.
Yeah, 8 on one side and 13 on the other. You can't do it. It's not set up for that kind of occupancy, that many vehicles. We need something done so that the people that are there feel safe, one, in crossing a road, and that they are assured that they have parking.
Okay.
I'm telling you, right now, you go and look, and there's 7 vehicles illegally parked right at the end of Russell Street, so that people turn in there, if they have to do a turnaround on the cul-de-sac, they can't because of all the vehicles that are there. So now they're backing into people's driveways in order to turn around and go out, or going up into there to pull a UE to come out. Something needs to be done. The noise I can put up with. The construction I can put up with. We need that for the seniors, for sure. But guarantee me it's for strictly seniors. And guarantee me that you're going to actually do something about the parking this year, because last year when they were building that, I was ready to start getting my 4x4 and start pulling people out from in front of my house and leaving them in the middle of friggin' River Road.
Thank you. Applicant?
Just with regards the occupancy, the project will be under an operating agreement with BC Housing and annual audits of the facility physically and financially. And I don't believe there's going to be any problem with regards who lives there. In most cases, it's going to be single, low to moderate income seniors. In some cases,
It's 55 plus, isn't it?
55. That's the provincial definition of seniors, so from 55 and over. So with regards to the parking, I think not looking at the overall campus, but at this particular proposal, I think we've done what we can do to provide the bylaw requirements plus over 50% more, going from 13 to add 8 to 21 parking stalls. But you know, what might be necessary is a more comprehensive look at parking and traffic in and around that area. That's all I can suggest. Dariush?
Just 2 points for gentleman mentioned about the conversation. One was about the height of the building. Obviously, when you're looking something, you do have angles, so you will see the 5-story. It's not, you don't see the 1 or 2 story below. You do have angle, you see below and you see higher. So you will see, but you will be at least 1 story higher. Regarding the parking, as John mentioned, bylaw required 13 and 13 is provided plus 8. This building is strictly rental building. don't have a staff. Looking at the plan, floor plan, there is just one staff room in lower floor. That's just for basically taking care of the rentals and that type of thing. It is rental.
A rental manager
Yeah,
is
a
what you're
rental
referring
manager,
to.
not the care. There is no care provided in this building, but the people in this building, they have access to remaining of the complex to not travel basically. So that's reduced the number of the parking required. So yeah, it's maybe overall, I'm not architect in the last two projects. Maybe there is overall traffic study to be done, but what we proposing here meet the bylaws requirement and number of the parking.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to let somebody else speak first because they're still waiting, and then once they spoke, you can come back up.
Hello, my name is Harold Austin, and I reside on 6189 River Road. Madam Mayor and councilors and fellow people, if the CAO could scroll up a bit, please. No, the other way. That odd-shaped right below Rainbow Gardens is our property. And if you could scroll up further now, Tim, it would, the other way, right to the bottom, I think. Oh, no. Well, I'm looking for the ones with the pictures of the building. There, that one, yeah. That row of trees right in front of it is our property line. And so not being able to see any shadow, I mean, the sun comes up on that side. So, and I might add that I'm not totally against what they're trying to do, but I can imagine us trying to sit down and have a barbecue in the backyard with, that staring down at us. We're fairly private people, and we have beautiful land while we're there. And now getting to, we had mentioned earlier about water being in the thing. Currently now, on this end of the building, water is cascading down over our property on a heavy rain. And we were concerned that once that building was there, the water that would normally be absorbed in that landmass is now going to be coming down on our property. So I guess, is there any buffer that they can put in there that will, allow us to have some privacy in the backyard? Is there anything that can be done with the water?
So that's a question for the applicant to answer.
Yeah, that's two questions, and trying to think what else I have here. Oh, and one other question was whether they're actually going to be seniors, but that's been answered already. So
that's your question.
Yeah.
So okay, so we'll ask the applicant to come back up and answer the question.
The property line at the south, facing to your property, has a 1.5 meter setbacks. City engineering department requested us to provide 3 meter setbacks at that south property line because they wanted to loop the water basically connection over there to get the better flow for firefighting. So a building is 3 meters back from the property. So 3 meters is...
Okay, excuse me, gentlemen. Hello. Oh, Harold.
Yeah,
if you have a seat and he can answer the applicant can answer the question, and then we're not debating amongst each other. Thank you.
Yeah, it's 1.5 meter is approximately 5 feet. That's what's required, but engineering department requested to increase that to 3 meters. So our building basically 3 meters away from the property line is around 9.8 feet from the building to, so there is that gap where the row of the trees right at the property line. So is the majority of the water will be collected at that retaining wall, and all the roof area collected and gonna go to the sanitary storm. Sorry. So it's all the water will be managed inside the property. Will not.
So there's more drainage that has to
That's
be done.
correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're going to go back to anybody else? Yes, come on up. State your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Carnegie, and I live at 5343 Russell Street. So I'm right across the street from the last new development that went in. And we bought our house about 8 years ago, and I phoned the city to find out what development and everything that was going to happen before we moved in. And of course, nothing came up because that was all new regarding the park across the street. But I have 2 kids. That is part of the reason I bought my house. And that's gone. So we were told, yeah, we're going to get one. I realize this is not what this is about. But so now we've gone through construction right across the street. As for privacy, there's no privacy. I can see right across into the assisted living development. I can see right into the living room, which means they can see right into mine. We dealt with the spotlight literally on my house from across the street for construction. I can tell you there's no way to monitor that it's only going to be seniors because that's assisted living right there. And I can tell you that there is a young native man, well, young, he's late 30s, early 40s, that likes to hang out in the in the one, I don't know what you want to go, suite across the street. And he's been there since they opened. He wears a black muscle shirt. He's there every day. So now we're going to build apartments that, you know, I just recently found out about. And I don't feel there's going to be a way to regulate. As for parking, everything that Carl said is accurate. I phoned myself to see if there was anything we could do about parking, whether we were allowed to put cones in front of our driveway. I have a large driveway. It can fit 3 vehicles. And yet I couldn't even pull out of my own driveway. The parking was so bad. Talk to the postal workers. You know, even he had an issue delivering to the mailboxes and had to put up cones and signs. Parking is an issue there. And I don't think 1 to 3 is gonna work. You know, we live in Westport. We're a little bit further away. There's not a whole bunch of amenities close to us, you know? So people who are moving in there, they're not gonna be able to walk to even Bilo or, you know, anything like that. So like that has to be considered, you know, the whole transit thing needs to be considered, all that. I am against changing the bylaw to allow for 2 extra stories. I think, you know, we've already lost our green space, our park. The reason we bought our house, now my kids get yelled at when they go down the path instead of, you know, being able to ride on their scooters and their skateboard. Yeah, we're only going to see 3 stories. Yay, I'm against it. I don't like it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Okay, any new person want to get up and say a few words? Okay, we do.
Hi, my name's Joseph Laskosic. I live on Princess Road here in Port Alberni.
Hi.
And acting mayor and council. Just a question and a comment. The question is, obviously, the development is still in the proposal stage, even for the 3 stories. Nothing's been approved yet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's just in the proposal stage for that. Nothing is actually, whether it's 3 or 5 or 2 or 1. It's in the proposal stage. Okay, so it's not a matter of changing an accepted development already. Okay. The other thing that was just mentioned about the location of it and the proximity to amenities, that is a huge thing. I would fit in the category of fitting into this building, age-wise and economically, as far as finances go. So I would fit into this category. I wouldn't want to live out there. I would be dependent on transit. I do a lot of walking. I do have a car right now, but I do walk most places or take transit once in a while, but I tend to walk everywhere. You're not going to be able to walk anywhere anywhere when it comes to many, whether it's a restaurant, a coffee shop, a recreation sort of thing, shopping for your groceries, you're going to have to be dependent on bus. Most people aren't going to be walking out there. In the category they're targeting, 55 to whatever age it is, again, those people are going to be fairly active and you want to keep them healthy. So you want to be in a place where they can get out and walk to get to things. So they're not going to be dependent on bus or asking somebody for a ride. So to me, that's a big thing. Because I heard what the income, the different type of things that there's going to be, whether it's somebody on social assistance, that's part of it, or lower income. And as I said, those people are going to be the ones that are going to have to. To me, that's the big thing out there. I'm all for aging in place. Fantastic idea. I've worked in care facilities. That was my career. And so I've worked in this. I've seen proposals from lots of different organizations, whether it's Berwick and things like that. They do a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of things out there. The idea of aging in place is great. The idea of having a daycare so kids can be, there's a lot of different, there's the intergenerational stuff taking place. Again, so I've seen it, and I love the idea of aging in place and affordable housing. I'm all for that idea. And thank you for a proposal from people that are interested in that, for coming into a community and saying low income for seniors is important, which it is, absolutely. But to me, this is a great, the building and that, I don't know all the setting for the residents to live there, that's a different thing. But just from looking for perspective of somebody who might be in that category, I would say not a great location. And something like the ADSS building or the old school site is a large site that's under development. That makes sense. You can walk to the grocery store, you can walk to Save On. You're fairly close to Echo Center, you could do that. So there's probably better spots for it. And I would suggest that that might be a consideration, because to me, this is not a great location, it's just too far out. And if there's lots of development around there commercially, there's not going to be, it's mostly a residential area, so it just doesn't make sense for that. So it's just a comment to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the ADSS site is not for sale. It's been sold, right? It's under development.
So,
And
excuse
yes,
me,
CAO.
Acting Mayor, if I may, just
Yes.
for clarity with the question from the last gentleman, this is a development variance permit application that's before council for consideration, and it's for whether you consider that you issue that DVP or not. If council goes ahead and issues this development variance permit, it would permit the applicant to construct those 2 additional floors and be a 5-story structure. If they stayed within the zoning height requirements right now, that limits them to 3. But if council were to go ahead and issue this DVP, they could go ahead and construct that 5 stories.
And council could add to that motion to take a look at, have a traffic study done too at the same time. Could they not, CAO?
The question right now is whether you issue the DVP.
Yes.
They could then go ahead and construct. So the recommendation would be that maybe you would rather table a decision. You'd rather issue, deny, table, and then if you want further information from the applicant, because nothing would preclude them from going forward. So if you're interested in a traffic study, I would suggest you ask for that in advance.
Okay, thank you. And any new people? Yes. Is it to do with? Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't going to speak to this issue, but I'll help you.
Your
here.
name again, please?
Sorry, my name is Keith Ambrose, and I'm at 3147 2nd, and I fit into this building nicely. My income is way lower than anybody you're talking about, and my age is there. And I can tell you this about, I was a landlord 30 years, I can tell you the landlord-tenancy branch is a dangerous area. So we need some guarantees here. I would ask 2 things. I would ask that we guarantee that these are our people, and the other thing, we guarantee occupancy so that you don't have family members showing up here and increasing your traffic load. And the other thing that's not being considered here is deliveries, and your modern person doesn't have to have a car. You'll have 10 people a day coming to your house, is what I see next door. They don't have a car. They live below the poverty line. 10 people a day delivering. So that's not 1 car, that's 10. So just please consider, these people are right about traffic. I know I'm on 2nd Avenue and we suffer and we work together. We try to work together. We try to work out what we've got, but thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, any repeat? Oh, okay.
Hello, I'm Pat Carnegie. I'm from 5343 Russell Street. So I had two questions, one to the developer and one to council that I'm just a little fuzzy on. So as far as the first question to the developers, I'm just curious if anybody has thought of the floodplain and how the evacuation is going to look for these 39 units as well as Rainbow Gardens. I was recently working at the mill when we had the tsunami warning, and I had to evacuate 40 people, and it was very hectic, and it took a couple hours as well as shutting down a mill. Evacuating close to 100 that only have 21 cars and all the logistics around that. I'm just curious if any of that has been addressed or thought of. My second question that I'm fuzzy about with the in regards to the council is, so if the city sold the park, not to beat a dead horse, but if the city sold the park for $136,000, how is it up to Rainbow Gardens to build us another park? Like, I would think that the city would build us another park in lieu of the one that we lost. Anyways, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, although Rainbow Gardens, I just want to make it clear too, Rainbow Gardens is a separate thing. What they're building is a different building. We have the care unit, and we have, and ignore my phone, we have the care unit as well as the apartments that are going to be built. And what has happened at Rainbow Gardens, I represent the city on Rainbow Gardens, just so everybody knows. I've been on the board for probably 14, 15 years, and the park, the Rainbow Gardens, is responsible for the park, and it has a lot to do with money. First, they want to finish the first stage. The tenants just moved in, I believe, in September? November, sorry, I'm just getting clarification. So they haven't got to the next stage. So it's two separate things here. We're talking about a height requirement for a particular building. And the reason that they're moving ahead too is, as stated before, is the funding. The government's giving all this money to help to mitigate the housing crisis that we have in British Columbia. And if you don't seize it, it's gone. Yes, there's a lot of issues, and council will have to make that decision, and that's what we're here for. Maybe the CAO, do you want to mention how that's all entails with the park, and how do we move forward? Because it's two separate things here.
Madam Mayor, I think you're correct that they're two separate issues.
Yes.
The variance application before you is a totally separate issue from the park, although I understand that the neighbors will connect the two.
And I understand that.
If council wants to have further considerations of a park, or you can do that, or if you want to interact with Rainbow Gardens around that, you can do that, but it should be considered separately from this.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to say something? Okay, go ahead.
There was question regarding Madam Mayor about the floodplain. The floodplain is, I believe, is 3.5 meter. We are way above the 200-year floodplain in this area. There will be fire safety plan prepared for the projects when they go ahead, which will be provide evacuation plans. But regarding the floodplain, we are way above the 200 years flood elevation in this area. And we do have a geotechnical report shows those information.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I have a question for the architect here. I'm just wondering, so this housing project is funded by BC Housing, right? So
correct.
To what extent has it been approved at this point, and what is stopping you now from moving forward?
You may want to talk to them.
Thank you. Good question. BC Housing recognizes that we must have approval to build 39 units in the form of this development variance before they're willing to give us what they call provisional project approval. And believe me, hopefully if we get a positive response from this meeting, we're going to be meeting with our development team to put forward that provisional project approval submission to BC Housing within a couple weeks, because they're asking us already, what's taking you so long? And I can understand why they don't want to spend the trouble of examining our development proposal in all of its detail, design and capital funding, and even operating pro forma. They don't want to spend the time and the trouble unless there is certainty that we can move forward with this proposal. So that's really what's holding us up at the present time.
What would be, say, your shovel-ready date, or what would be the ideal?
Well, I think if we got approval, we would need to prepare our building permit documents for review both by the city, a building inspector, and BC Housing. And I think that would take us 3 to 4 months. And then we can get final approval, because BC Housing lures you along. First of all, they'll give you proposal development funding, and we have about $250,000 that they've given us access to prepare the proposal. And once we get approval of the building permit drawings, and we have a permit in hand, then they will give us interim construction financing to build the project. So it all occurs in stages. We've got $250,000 in PDF now. We will get the go-ahead to have our development team begin work on building permit drawings after we get provisional project approval. Anyway, I hope that's enough.
Okay. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry. If this motion is defeated today, is this project dead?
That's an interesting question. I would say that it reduces the chances of it going forward significantly for a number of reasons. And one has to do with the cost of the extra foundation work we have to do in this area of poor soils. And we have to have sufficient economies of scale to allocate that fixed cost over the number of units. So even if you say, oh, well, we'll go forward with a 3-story building with only 23 units, it still makes our development proposal less cost competitive. And contrary to popular belief, the government wants us to be cost competitive. They want the building to be adequate and livable and attractive, but at the same time, there's cost criteria that we have to deal with.
Excuse me, may
Yep.
I ask just, this may be a little bit extra information. There was the consideration because of the whole retaining wall and the soil situation. We're looking at least 400 to 600 additional costs for these projects. This actually presented to client if they consider another location for this project, because with that money you can't purchase. Because of the working all complex together, that was the board basically decided, this is the location work for them because of the work for people in this complex. That's why they choose to go for this one. This is not easy consideration for them to do. Is another 600,000 for construction is not a small number.
Well, construction costs go up as soon as you close the door every day. Anybody else have questions? Okay, anybody else last time? Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Carl Barnwell, 6120 Russell Place. Again, I keep hearing this, the target is from 55 to 64 years of age in this place, but nobody has once said that it is guaranteed for seniors.
It is for seniors.
And that's guaranteed that we're not going to end up with people that are not seniors in this place.
BC Housing has a stipulation, and they review everything every year, and you have to present your taxes and that to show
Okay,
your
yeah,
income.
that's fine. I just want, because like I said, nobody's actually said, no, only seniors are going to be living here. And
It's
I just
seniors.
wanted to hear from you that's saying that, yes, it's only seniors going to be in this.
You have to show so much paperwork. Go ahead.
I just want to make a comment, and I'm working on a different project altogether, but we're dealing with BC Housing. And BC Housing, the contract that you signed with BC Housing is very specific. They actually have very specific rent zones for specific people, and that's the contract that you're signing with BC Housing for 60 years.
Okay.
I don't know if you're a lease or a purchase or for this project or what it is, but
yeah, there's just
you
a
have
lot
to
of
show
buzz.
you have to show proof of income, age, all of those criteria in order to qualify for, in some cases, some rent subsidies.
Yeah.
And the contract is very specific, very strict. If anybody's worked with BC Housing in the past, it's so difficult, it's almost enough to discourage you from becoming involved. Like
No, and that's fine. It's just there was a lot of buzz about, there's nothing saying that for sure to say it was for seniors. That was my biggest concern. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Nope. Yes, sir? Go ahead.
Daryl Gretchen, 6150 Westport Boulevard. So if I understood you to say that your the retaining wall and...
Could you address the chair, please?
Sorry, the retaining wall, if I understood correctly, the construction of a retaining wall, site preparation was going to cost another $400,000 to $600,000. Was going to cost $400,000 to $600,000 more, and that the board, I'm not sure which board, maybe said maybe we should consider another site. So when I first read about the variance, and now I hear because of geotechnical, I read the geotechnical studies showed that 3 stories wouldn't be feasible. And then this gentleman mentioned that to prepare that part, the eastern part of the footprint would be too costly. So I'm thinking, what, more retaining wall, pilings maybe? So an additional, what, $200,000, $400,000? So I'm wondering if funding for pilings or whatever it's required in that the poor part of the footprint is just how expensive that would be. And if this variance permit was rejected, then unfortunately you might have to consider another site. But I understand the First Nations desire to be and fully sympathize with their people wanting to be close to their people.
Excuse me. Rainbow Gardens, I just want to clarify, is not open just for First Nations. It's open for all. And actually, when you go into placement into Rainbow Gardens itself, nobody gets to pick who they go. You get into a list, and that's with all the aging facilities in Vancouver Island, probably in BC, and it's picked that way. It's not, oh, I'm taking you and I'm taking you. It doesn't work that way. Just so you know that. And this is an apartment, so you put an application in, and I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Okay, so it's
Thank
open
you.
for all.
I understand.
Okay.
So it's about, I'm wondering just how expensive it would be to make that, the eastern portion of that footprint amenable for building.
Thank you. Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I notice our friend Mr. Appleton's in the gallery. I just didn't know if he could offer any comfort to Mr. Brunel's comment about the entry level.
I was thinking the same thing because I keep looking over there and I keep seeing him. He wants, Mr. Appleton, will you join us, please?
Sorry, I'm not sure what your question is.
Just come right up to the mic, please. And maybe you could explain what you are with the project? I know how much you love to speak.
My name is Derek Appleton. I'm the Vice President of Rainbow Gardens and the Building Committee Chair, and we've been working on this project since 2018. A couple of comments I'll make real quick about parks and stuff like that is that park is dependent. We've talked about a park, talked about that Rainbow Gardens would like to see a park. Let's stress again that it's a park built for seniors and that we do have plans for that, but adding another 39 people to that will also have a variance on what we build in the park. So what we need to scale up for the park. So the park is still being looked at, it's still being dealt with. The issue here we have two choices. I'm not sure what your question was that you were asking about. You have to, I wasn't really following, so you have to give me what your question was.
Go ahead.
That you wanted answered.
Councillor Washington.
And I'll try to
Thank
answer
you.
it for you.
Mr. Appleton, it was Mr. Barnell's last question, his concern about the people that will be living in the complexes. Is the criteria to be in there, is it rigid or is it?
Yeah, it's rigid. They're all seniors living in that place. And the other thing that I want to make mention to is that because we're mandated to gear for development for Aboriginal people, that while some people in town might not think it's that close for relatives and friends, across the river, Seashat Reserve, there are lots of people that are in the facility now where their families are close. And so that Rainbow Gardens actually, as an Aboriginal seniors care facility, makes a lot of sense to where it's located.
And do you want to address the parking? Because we do have issues up there.
Yeah, there are parking issues. There was during construction because we had to keep our facility open. Now the parking issues aren't quite as bad, but there is opportunity to build parking, on Russell Place itself. We could look at carving in and adding another 10 parking spots if you throw up the map there. There has been talk of that. The 21 parking spaces that we're proposing with this, I think is adequate. I want to make sure that the comments about it not being a care facility and not having the staff, there's one manager, property manager, that will manage both RG20 and RG39. That's one person. So when you talk about having the need, adding the 13 care facility beds did add a little bit to our staff, another 4 people in staff on a daily whatever. Yeah, there are issues with parking, but there are issues with speed, and there are a lot of issues that we would like to sit down and talk to the traffic committee with once we get past this. You used to have playground signs there, which no longer exist. People do whip along there. You used to have mileage signs in Westport, which no longer exist. So yeah, there are issues to deal with, but specifically for this height variance on this project, there we're talking about drainage issues aren't issues, shadowing issues aren't issues, height issues, yeah, from the back of your property might be a little bit of it. You might be able to see 2 stories, but if we were to build the 3 stories on the top level there now, it'd be a story less. So the way it sits now, if we built 3 stories up where the maintenance building is there now, the little building that's in the corner there, or Cindy, you know where I mean, or where the dining room is there, if we could build 3 stories legally right now from that up, to do that would be, basically what we're really adding is a story, a little bit more than a story.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, one more time, and then we'll move on. We'll just come right up, Harold.
6189.
You need to go to the microphone because it's being streamlined. Yes.
Oh, okay. Harold Aston, 6189, which is below the subject property there. And I had asked a question earlier about possibly putting some sort of a buffer in that we wouldn't make it so obvious to us, like 5 stories. I mean, it's just if you go down to the other one, you can see what I'm talking about. And anywhere from in my property, I'm sure you can see that.
Okay. So
right there. I'm on the lower side of that, so basically I was hoping for some sort of buffer, whether it be trees or fence or retaining wall or something.
Mr. Appleton can answer that. Do you want to come up to the microphone, please?
Well, I can say to that, as we built along, when we built the assisted living along the backside there between Compton and Moore Road, there's two houses that were there. We built a screen of cedar trees along there, and I'd be happy to sit down with Mr. Austin and talk to him about what kind of a screen we could build between his properties, depending on whether the city wants to put their water line in there and hook up that water line through there. I mean, that's dependent on that as well. I mean, we're happy to look at his property on the inside of that fence and look at possibly planting him trees on his own property, if that's what's required. The reason those trees were taken out in that gully is because they're all dangerous trees. That's an old maple growth in there that's, 40 years old. And all those trees in there were rotting and were a hazard. And that's why they came out.
Okay, thank you.
There was no great trees in there.
Okay, so...
Madam Chairman, I just had a few. Yes. It's hard to follow Derek because he usually covers the world. But I just wanted to say, with regards to the gentleman's property and the issues of privacy, privacy works both ways. And I think what we do traditionally in these projects is to have a well-built cedar fence between our property and adjoining properties. I don't know what the height limit is. Usually it's 6.5 feet. So we'd put a cedar fence all along that property line. And as Derek suggested, I think it would be a good idea to talk to adjacent neighbors with regards our landscape plan and where we put significant trees as part of our landscape design. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion before us, but before I ask council what they would like to do, if I was sitting just here as a councillor right at this moment, my comment would be is when I see seniors living, and it really upsets me, when I see seniors who cannot afford the rents that are out there nowadays, that live on the government handouts. I've seen seniors that live in rat-infested apartments. I've seen seniors that cook on their heater because they don't have a stove and they don't have a fridge. I have talk to many seniors that have said, Cindy, we're couch surfing. I can't afford $900 a month rent. I can't do that. When I see seniors going through this and seniors that, actually one senior put her stuff into just recently, we're trying to find a place for her. She just put all her stuff in storage. I says, well, you may as well move it into the storage because it'll be a lot cheaper for you. She said, yeah, I should, And so I have issues with that. There's a lot of seniors, not just some of the seniors I've talked to, have no place to go. There's a lot of seniors, yes, that want to sell their big, huge houses because they can't afford to live in them anymore because of taxes and different other reasons, but they can't afford not to stay there because they don't have a place to go. We have a housing crisis in Port Alberni, not just in Port Alberni, but across the province. And this council, in our strategic plan, has looked at we want to move forward and help these people that have these issues. And it's not just seniors, it's families, it's single mothers and children. So that is my personal thing. This is not necessarily what everybody else is believing. That's up to them to speak on that. But this is what I have seen. And I just have a problem with that. Anyways, I just wanted to say that. And so, council, what would you like to do? Yes. Do you want to give the floor? Councillor Haggard, we would love to hear from you.
She probably had her hand up.
Yeah, you had your hand up.
I did. There were some concerns expressed by the people in the audience, and there are legitimate concerns. I don't think they're speaker said that there were some issues with speeding and parking. So I think we can work with them in order to facilitate solutions. Maybe put some speed bumps on Russell Street to slow down traffic. Maybe put some residents-only parking signage in front of residents' homes. So those are things that maybe, I don't know if that would be the development department that would be working with the applicant on these issues, but I think the city can work with the applicant and try and work out solutions to these issues. But I certainly don't want to turn down 35 units of affordable seniors housing for things that we can work with and have solutions to.
As you can't visually see what's happening in the audience here, I see yes from some of the people that are here to say, hey, we have some issues with the development, and they liked what you just said. And I see the developer saying, yes, I love the speed bumps and that. So yes, it looks like we have some yeses in the audience, just so you know that, which you can't see and the audience can't see because they're facing me. So Councillor Paulson.
Just a couple things. I do sit on the Advisory Traffic Committee, and I have for a couple of years, although we rotate out as council, but the issue of Russell Place has not come before the Traffic Committee, and I would suggest that it should. It should be, and that's where we get a chance to talk about solutions and compromises and those sorts of things. But I think that either a letter or a presentation from residents on Russell Street, I think, to get it on the table for the next traffic committee meeting, which I'm not sure when the next meeting is, but it'll be not for another month, maybe 2. But I mean, we address situations in those meetings, everything from the traffic on Johnson Road to school zones, and I think this really fits well in the wheelhouse of that particular committee. The second thing that I would like to just maybe make a comment about is I'm really pleased with the comments and the way they were presented today. I know that sometimes it can be, you can get emotions going, and I think that everybody that presented today was very articulate and held their emotions in control and really stated their case as well. I think that we'll probably all walk out of here today, hopefully with a broader knowledge of what was going on. So I thank everybody that had the courage to stand up today and talk. I know how difficult that can be. Some of us there's not a microphone we don't love, but the second thing I'm a little concerned about is, and I hate to put a project back, I'm in favor of the project and I'm in favor of seniors housing, and I could very well be a tenant in this place in the not too distant future. But I'm concerned that there's just 4 of us here and 1 by phone. And I'm wondering if we should table the motion when we have full council here and we can have a full, proper, vetted vote. But I yield to the other councillors on their thoughts on that one. We do have a quorum here, but we certainly haven't heard from the mayor, and Sir Councillor Corbeil probably had to leave before he could make his comments as well.
Okay.
Anyway, I thank everybody personally for your thoughts and presentations, and I know that it all came from the heart. I hope that the proponent was able to answer most of your questions. One question I do have, just
Go ahead.
in my mind. Has the proponent held an open house with regards to this project
Let's just ask.
in the neighborhood?
Mr. Appleton?
And the only reason why I ask this is there's a lot of questions that came here today that probably could have or should have been addressed at an open house. And I'd be just surprised at some of the detail that people were asking about.
We have a display that shows everything that we're proposing on doing. It's up at Rainbow Gardens. If you looked at what was sent out to the neighbors, it states that there's a display there. It also states that there's a email address that they can email Rainbow Gardens, and that we'd be happy to meet with any of the neighbors to discuss any of this. My understanding coming into this meeting was that we did not have any complaints personally addressed to Rainbow Gardens. I saw usually I know from history that when you come here, this is where they vent. They're not going to vent to me personally, but like I've always said, it's an open door at Rainbow Gardens. I'd be happy to discuss the neighbors' concerns with the park and what's going on there, or any concerns they have with the construction that's gone on throughout the whole development. I know that there's a Facebook club in Westport that talk about getting the park back there, and I want to try to assure everybody here that yes, we would like to see a shelter there and a seniors park with some fitness equipment for seniors, and that also the care facility side can use, because now they do walk people along the sidewalk there and do their kilometer walk or whatever they call it through the facility. So it's not, I don't think the issue isn't, like with most of these things, isn't that there's an issue with coming to talk to Rainbow Gardens about what we're doing or what we're proposing. I think I want to simplify this down, that we're making this a very complicated thing, when really all we're asking for here is a height variance. We have the opportunity to build this now, delaying it. We've been on this since initially we started this in 2018, I think, the same time, the other project started in town here. We have the ability to do everything we need, other than we need the height variance to move it forward. Without getting that height variance, we've stalled BC Housing now for over a year. We talk about trying to move these things through quickly. This isn't a very difficult height variance for somebody that goes in and actually looks at what's being proposed. The issue is it's a communications issue, and the communications aren't clear, and anybody in the public that wants those communications can email me at Rainbow Gardens anytime, and I'd be happy to answer any questions they have.
Thank you. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, Councillor Poon, then Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Mayor. I am in support of calling the question today and not tabling this further.
Thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pretty confident, hearing everything around here today, that the developer, Mr. Appleton, I think they're going to accommodate nearly everything that's been discussed today. So I agree with Councillor Poon. We should
Move forward.
move forward.
Okay. Councillor Washington, I'm calling you. Do you want to make the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the development variance permit number DVP 98 for 6151 Russell Place be issued to the property owners to vary section 5.31.2 P1 institutional maximum height principal building from 12.5 meters to 17.71 meters, and section 5.31.21 P1 institutional maximum number of principal building stories from 3 to 5 stories.
Seconder? Okay. Any comments from council? Any questions? Yes, Councillor Haggard? No?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I would like to, can we also add something in about having these concerns forward to the Traffic Advisory Committee?
I think it's two separate motions. Is that? Let's clarify that. Yes?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have two separate motions here. You can make a motion right after this one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and hopefully we'll all work this out. As I sit on the board, we talk parking and everything too on top of that. So again, I want to echo, I'll wait till after this. Okay, let's vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion? Councillor Haggard?
Yes, I'll support the motion.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, your motion, Councillor Haggard?
Can we have these concerns that were expressed today by the residents of Westport Place be referred to the Traffic Advisory Committee?
That's your motion? Okay, seconder?
We'll let the wordsmithing happen.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay, second. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And again, I want to echo, thank you, Councillor Haggard. Oh, Councillor Haggard, I forgot to ask you. In favor? You made the motion, so there you go. I want to echo the same comments that Councillor Polson said regarding how the public came out and spoke. It was really nice, and I like that. And we'll work on your concerns. Don't worry. Okay. Thank you. All righty. Next, Acting Director of Finance, Reserves and Surplus Funds Overview.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report was to provide Council with an overview of the city's reserve and surplus accounts, including balances as at...
You need to get closer to the mic, I think.
Am I close enough? Can you hear me? Okay.
Speak up.
So the purpose of the report is to provide an overview of the city's reserve and surplus balances as at December 31st, 2019, and also to get council support on creating a financial management policy. So at the Committee of a Whole held February 3rd, members requested that staff provide an overview of the current reserve funds and balances. So the report details the city's rationale for establishing the reserves, the purposes of those reserves, as well as the balance. So I did want to take the time just to mention that the balances referenced are our 2019 unaudited financial statement balances and are subject to change pending any year-end adjustments. So just take note of that as you go through and reference the report. So to give a bit of background, the city has established the reserves for the following purposes. To provide sources of funds for future capital expenditures, to provide a source of funding for areas of expenditure that fluctuate significantly from year to year, including equipment replacement, special building maintenance, and such. To protect the city from uncontrollable or unexpected increases in expenditure or unforeseen reductions in revenues, or a combination of the two. And to provide for capital to ensure sufficient cash flow to meet the city's needs throughout the year. So I did give a overall review, consolidated view of the reserves. And if you have any other questions about the rationale or specific use or balances, I can take those at this time.
Any questions from council? Yes, Councillor Paulson.
Me again, back to the microphone. Just thank you for your report. I think a lot of the general public don't understand the reserves and how they work. And I think that your report shows that we're relatively healthy in most of those categories, which is good. And without reserves, we'd be in a whole mess of problems. And I'm one that's kind of in the background been harping about a bit of a reserve fund, and I know it might come under capital works and stuff, but for facilities that we own. And we always seem to get caught off guard with a roof replacement or a furnace replacement here or there. And I think we need to talk about a reserve for city-owned assets like our buildings. And I'm not sure how that would appear, but I just throw that out there again. I've mentioned it once, I've mentioned it twice. This is 3 times.
And you bring
Thank
up
you for your report.
You're very welcome. You bring up a good point, and we are working on an asset management plan, and I think that can be a good tool for council to use and maybe request a reserve such as that.
I agree with you. Thank you very much. No further questions. Councillor Haggard, any questions? No?
No questions at this time, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Someone want to move the motion and before us? Go right ahead.
I'll move that the report from Acting Director of Finance dated February 18th, 2020, speaking to the city's reserve and surplus funds as of December 31st, 2019, be received.
Second.
And that Council of City of Port Alberni direct staff to create a financial management policy for the purpose of documenting long-standing principles and best practices to be used by the city to assist in maintaining the city's financial stability.
Seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Second. Any questions? All in favor? Councillor Haggard?
Yes, I support the motion.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, Manager of Planning, Uptown District Revitalization Strategy.
Madam
CEO.
Mayor, thank you. Again, the manager of planning is not present. She has a report on your agenda, and essentially staff are in the process of developing an Uptown District Revitalization Strategy in support of the city's strategic plan, and also to support and feed into the revisitation of the review of the city's official community plan later this year. We're working with Vancouver Island University's Master Community Planning Program, and currently sort of scoping out what that process could look like. A grant opportunity has emerged that we think is links really well to this project. So UBCM has a poverty reduction planning and action program through which we can access up to $25,000. And the manager planning proposes that the city would spend $5,000 from the current or proposed draft budget for the planning department and leverage that with $25,000 in grant funding to undertake that work, working with VIU on that project. And the project would be very much about engaging the public and looking at a holistic approach to revitalizing the Uptown in a way that isn't overly gentrifying the area and isn't excluding all categories of the community from that area. So it is very much poverty focused as well. So we're looking today for council support of that grant application.
Questions from council? I do have a quick question. Have we done a plan like this before? I can't remember if we've done one. I think maybe years ago.
We likely have done similar work in the past. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And is the ACRD going to be, are we going to do regional wise or just city?
I'm not sure if the regional district's applying for the same funding. All local governments are eligible to. Certainly municipalities are. And we're focusing, we're intending to focus on the Uptown area. So it wouldn't be it's not an Alberni Valley wide project. It's an Uptown district project.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, motion and before you guys, what would your pleasure be?
I'll
Yes, go
read
ahead.
the motion if you wish.
Yes.
I would like to move that council support staff in applying for funding for the Poverty Reduction Planning and Action 2020 Stream 1 Plans and Assessments through UBCM for its project titled Uptown District Revitalization Strategy, including a commitment to provide overall grant management of this project should funding be received.
Seconder.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Second. Any questions? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
I found it a little bit hard to hear the CAO, so they might have answered this question, but I'm not really clear what the end goal of this application is.
Okay, CAO.
What is the intent?
Yeah. Further up. Where am I going?
So we're just scrolling on the screen right now.
Under background. So, Madam Mayor, I'm just referring to the Manager of Planning's report. The overarching goals of developing an Uptown District Revitalization Strategy are as follows. Identify a high-level vision that will guide City Council and staff's efforts aimed at Uptown District revitalization. Work with the public, businesses, stakeholders, and local neighborhood residents to identify current issues, challenges, and possible solutions. Develop specific actions, timelines, and partnerships to help implement the high-level vision and prepare information that can also be embedded within the city's official community plan.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I got most of it.
Okay, that's on page, what page number is that? 46. If you want to take a look at your package. This will also help with all the homelessness and everything that's happening on the Uptown area and the people that are just wandering.
It's envisioned to be very high level, so it's
Okay.
it's not about impacting individuals on the street. This is high level planning, and it very much will feed into the official community plan work. And
Okay.
I would suggest that if we don't undertake this work in this format, we'll be undertaking it in a different format as part of the review of the OCP.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, Councillor Haggard?
No, thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor, all in favor? Councillor Haggard?
Yeah, I'll support the motion.
Okay, opposed, motion carried. Okay, next. And, okay, Deputy Clerk. Third Avenue Revitalization Project, conceptual design costs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. There's a report prepared by the Deputy Clerk. I think there was a question asked at a previous meeting of Council around what the costs were for engaging Watt Consulting and preparing conceptual design. So our original budget for that work was $8,000. We went a little bit over that. And again, we've asked them to provide some more information on the angled parking. So don't know what that's going to come in at, but I imagine it'll be a little bit more. So any questions? We started that around, I think it was around September of last year. So once the strategic plan came out.
Questions from council? No questions? Councillor Haggard? And
No questions at this time, thank you.
okay, thank you very much. And we have a motion. Councillor Paulson? Sure.
What the heck, I'm such a good reader. I'd like to move that the report from the Deputy City Clerk dated February 18, 2020, providing payment information by the city to Watt Consulting Group for the preparation of conceptual design work for the Third Avenue Revitalization Project be received.
Seconder? Second. Questions? All in favor? Councillor Haggard?
Yes, I support the motion.
Okay. And motion carried. Next. Oh, bylaws. And correspondence for action. City Clerk, Deputy City Clerk, you want to?
Sure, acting Madam Mayor. So we have a letter dated from the city of Port Alberni. Sorry, there we go. And they're looking for support in their resolutions to the Minister of Health Canada, calling for the creation of a national pharmacare program. So council, there was a letter provided in your agenda package. Council may wish to consider sending a similar letter to the Minister of Health.
Okay, and that's from the city of Port Moody.
Correct. What did I say?
Port
City of
Alberni.
My apologies.
I thought, where am I? Okay. Council, what's your pleasure? Yes, Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the letter dated February 4, 2020, requesting support for the resolutions to the Minister of Health calling for a creation of a national pharmacare program be received, and further check with the Clerk's Department to see if it would be appropriate to send a letter of support.
Thank you. Seconder, discussion? It was, I do have a quick thing on it. It's interesting, I was at a drugstore and this one girl went up to go get her prescription, and they told her how much it was going to cost, and she said, no, I can't afford it. I got to feed my kids, and walked away. And I actually went looking for her. I thought about it, and then I went looking for her because I was just going to go pay for it and buy it for her, but she had gone. So this is needed to me. Anyways, motion on the floor. Any questions? Councillor Haggard?
No questions,
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
All in favor? Councillor Haggard?
Yeah, I support the motion.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next, BC Games.
Yeah, so a letter before you. I understand that they write on an annual basis, and they are looking to see if City of Port Alberni would be interested in submitting a bid for either the Winter Games or Summer Games in 2024 and again in 2026.
And I'm not sure if we want to refer it or we want to just say no to Parks and Rec. Councillor Washington, you look like you have a question in mind.
Well, Madam Mayor, I believe we've hosted just about every BC Games that could be hosted. I don't know how our volunteer status is in Port Alberni right now. It's probably not the strongest. I know most service clubs are having issues with membership and to get people going. This is a short-term thing, so perhaps we should receive the letter and forward it to Director Thorpe for further consultation.
Okay. Any questions? Is that a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Yes. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'll just kind of echo what's been said here is we're one of the few communities in the province that have hosted all four of the BC Games. And the BC Games Society have in a previous incarnation in my job, I was at a number of their meetings. They want us to host again because we're such good hosts. But I concur, you're only as good as, first of all, your chair or leader of those kind of projects, like John Furlong in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And you're only as good as your volunteers. And my experience of late has been the volunteer pool is either dwindling or they're tired. I was lucky being the chair of the World Under 17, and it was over Christmas and New Year's, and we had a huge volunteer group from the teachers who had time off at that time. So you're only as good as your leader, and you're only as good as your volunteer force. And I agreed that we should look into it, but we need to see if there's a will.
I echo what you're saying. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, a motion on the floor. All in favor? Councillor Haggard?
Yes, I support it.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next. Number
And-
3, Teresa Fleck.
And Ms. Affleck has written to council requesting support to have the city look at its business license bylaw that would allow for home-based businesses to manufacture products from their home. Currently, the city does not permit manufacturing of certain home-based businesses. I understand this has been an item that has been that is on the radar in the business license department. So the resolution that has been provided for council's consideration is to direct staff to look at what amending the bylaw to allow that use would look like.
Okay, Councillor Poon, do you want to read?
I just have a question, actually. What kind of manufacturing is currently allowed within home-based businesses?
Madam
Who
Mayor,
can answer that?
Staff are not prepared to answer that at this point. We can bring that information if you like.
Okay, go ahead,
The
Councillor
motion.
Poon.
I'll move that the letter from Teresa Affleck requesting an amendment to the city business license bylaw be received, and that council direct staff to review the city's current practices, including identifying any implications and or concerns should the city move forward and amend its business license bylaw to permit the manufacturing of products in a home-based business.
Seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Second, and discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Madam Mayor?
Oh, sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I had trouble hearing. Councillor Poon, could you just repeat the motion to me, please?
Do you want to say it louder?
The motion is as presented in the agenda.
Are you following the agenda?
Yeah?
It's the motion that was written?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're good with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Okay, all in favor? And Councillor Haggard?
Yeah, I'll support the motion.
Okay, opposed, motion carried. Next, proclamations. Correspondence for action. Deputy City Clerk?
Yes.
For information, correspondence for information.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So correspondence for information, one from Cycle Alberni, which is thanking the city for its contribution toward the bike fix-it stands. You have correspondence from the owner-operator of Trendsetter Shoes, encouraging council to proceed with the 3rd Avenue revitalization product. And correspondence that was addressed to the City of Victoria, and it was just copied to member municipalities of UBCM regarding their safer drug supply and overdose prevention sites.
Anybody want to bring anything up on the correspondence? Nope. Nope. Councillor Haggard?
No, I'm good, thank you.
A motion to receive? Seconder? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Reports from in camera. I believe there's nothing. And council reports. Anybody want to highlight anything? Nope. It's all in there. Somebody want to move the reports? Council report? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Let's turn the page. Next. Yes, we are. New business. Okay, an opportunity for council. Okay, we know that to bring up. Okay, go ahead, Deputy City Clerk.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So just for council's information, Committee of the Whole minutes are brought back from February 3rd. Absent was one of the motions that was dealing with allocating half of the monies regarding the Welcome to Port Alberni signage. So that is now before council for ratification.
So does council need an explanation on this? Nope. Yep, you were. Okay, Councillor Washington, you want to?
I move that the council instruct staff to reduce the funds currently allocated to the Welcome to Port Alberni signage project in the city's 5-year financial plan 2020-2024 to $75,000 from $150,000 in the 2020 and place the remaining $75,000 in the 2021 calendar year.
And I'll second that since, yeah, and discussion. Anybody have Councillor Haggard?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
When we discussed that at the February 3rd meeting, we had also discussed about tabling the motion until we got the report from staff regarding cost and options.
We talked about it, but we didn't have that in a motion. Do you want to say something, Deputy City Clerk?
I was just going to clarify that that was discussed again then at the regular meeting, and that was where it had been tabled. Okay. But this was from the Committee of the Whole.
This is from the Committee of the Whole.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
But can I put a motion on the table that we table this motion until we get that report?
Go ahead.
This is a motion from the Committee of the Whole, so it's just ratifying. Council will receive the report before they're asked to consider this before action's taken. This is just a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole.
It's a recommendation coming out of the Committee of the Whole. You know how you can't make motions in the Committee of the Whole. It has to come to Council. So,
yeah.
So that's what this is. And then the report and everything's gonna come back to Council at a Council meeting at a later date. Okay.
Okay, I'm still sorry.
Deputy City Clerk?
Sorry, I think I'm adding to the confusion. If council will receive a report before they're asked to consider this. This was just to clarify that this was in the Committee of the Whole minutes. That was not there previously.
You got that?
This is the cart before the horse, not cart.
Councillor Haggard?
I'm totally confused. I'm sorry. So we can't table this motion? It's either a vote yes or no before we get the report?
Deputy City Clerk?
This motion was absent from the Committee of the Whole minutes previously. So yes, simply just go ahead and table it. You will receive the report before you're being asked anything further with regards to the...
So the proper procedure now, she could just table it right now and the end of discussion. It would normally be...
That's correct.
That's right. So if you're going to table it, go for it.
Okay, I'd like to table this motion until the report is received and get an opportunity to review that report.
Seconder?
I'll second that.
It's second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? There is no vote on that. Just tell me the procedure. It's done. Okay. Yep. Yep. So, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to thank the city clerk for explaining that to me. Thank you.
Okay. So, question period. Any questions? Okay, come on up. You waited this, everybody else left. Name again?
I live on Princess Road here in Port Alberni, and I want to say thank you for Council and Acting Mayor Solda today for stepping in as mayor today and filling that role, and Council for the work that you do, first of all. And the public input today was fantastic to hear. I don't know if that's normal at a council meeting to hear that much stuff. As you say, an open house, I think the question was asked, was there an open house for the project on regarding the low-cost senior housing? And I don't think that was answered, but that's okay, because he didn't say yes there was. He said we've got something at the gardens there you can come, or you can come and look at, but he never answered your question on that one. The question I have for you is, it's a great proposal. Again, I'm all for low-cost housing of any kind, seniors, young, everybody. It's a challenge today for a lot of people. So that's not an issue at all. I say we definitely need something. My question is, this has been brought forward by an organization saying this is where we want to put it. Has the city engaged from the step one saying we want low-cost housing? What are some of the possibilities for sites? I know there's a proposal for, I think it's a transition house of some kind, location near Glenwood Center by the high school. I think that's being proposed already. There's an organization doing that. I think there's also, so that's land that the city owns. I think there's a proposal also near the Shelter Society that has built something there between 8th and 9th there. And I think that belongs to the Catholic Diocese from what I remember hearing. So that's land that's available at probably a lot less cost than if they had to come in and buy it. I also know there's a proposal for an apartment building at the old Fairway Market location. That came and went. I never heard any more about that one. I've only been here a short time, but these are just things I've listened to. The location where the old Fairway Market is, I thought, what a fantastic location to build an apartment. Everything is accessible to everybody. You can get outside your door, you can be social, you can exercise. Isolation of social things is a big deal. So to me, the more accessible it is to a lot of things, amenities, eco center, just different things, the healthier it is for everybody. So my question is, has the city looked at, great idea, low-cost housing, let's get involved with people that are interested in this, the BC government, obviously there's funding there. Have we engaged prior to this location being looked at, say, we've got other land, the city owns land, there's other spots. Can we partner with somebody, the diocese, whatever it is, to say, there's a more central location, let's do it where it makes sense. And I'm just wondering if the city's actually engaged in that part. All of this is just something kind of out of blue that somebody's come up with and said, well, we've got some land, we're going to do it there, without, you know, the consultation of what the possibilities are in other locations within the city. So,
Councillor Washington would love to answer it because he just put his hand up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you're talking about today's discussion, I think the reason that development is going to go there is only because of the facility that's already established with the cooking facilities, the cleaning facilities. It just makes it easier for them to be able to not have to put all that in that and make it a 6-story building. So it's going there just because of the care facility that's already there.
So you're saying the care facility is actually engaged in this? I thought it was strictly low-cost housing for seniors. Doesn't, because the Rainbow Gardens is two separate things completely from my understanding. Rainbow Gardens is assisted living. There might be some independent living in there, but it's geared towards people that need some, I think, from what and I worked in a facility similar to that. So to me, these are two separate things.
Okay, Rainbow Gardens has the facility, the care one. Then there's assisted living, and then there's different stages, as you know, for living, right? And they decided to put it all together. They looked at other areas of the community, but this fit in really well because there might be people who they can cook, but they can actually interact with the whole facility too. It's just part of the whole thing. It's all Rainbow Gardens.
Okay. But the whole application, the city, to the government of BC is for low-cost housing for seniors.
Exactly.
Nothing to do with Rainbow Gardens really at all.
No.
But this, they just say, well, for us, it's a benefit, and maybe for some, because there's no real interaction there. Strictly low cost, like you said, people can come from anywhere. It's not a particular group of people.
Well, Rainbow Gardens itself, the healthcare facility.
Right,
it'd be great if you would like to call Derek, right, Appleton there, and he would give you a tour of the facility, and he could take you around.
Yes.
And if you can't get hold of him, call me.
And I've been inside Rainbow Gardens already, except for the new section, but I've been there, so.
And we would be glad to show you more and explain
Sounds
it.
good.
Yes, go ahead.
So I think the question was, though, have other sites been looked at by the city for low-cost housing for seniors? Has that been part of the initial?
CAO?
In a general sense, Madam Mayor, the city does consider where we would want to see that type of land use, and that's reflected by our zoning and our official community plan. And we've also interacted multiple times with BC Housing and meet on a fairly regular basis with them and encourage them to invest here, to work with agencies that would partner with them. And we've expressed repeatedly that the city owns lands we'd be interested in seeing used for those purposes. Having said that, the next step of that is that the city receives proposals. And so it's not uncommon for us to receive proposals from people who are landowners or have access to land, and that might not fit within our broader plans, and that's why we have meetings like you saw today, where we say, well, we weren't really considering that there, but we'll consider a variance or a rezoning or something to enable that. So we pre-plan in a sense of where we want to see multifamily or institutional housing, and but not specifically around for. We're not, our OCP, to my awareness, doesn't drill down to low-cost housing in specific sites.
Good. Thank you again. So it sounds like if for some reason this project didn't go through, we would possibly look at other possibilities within the city saying, that's a failed one, let's look at, so that would be a possibility for the then to other areas to maybe be considered looked at then.
Rainbow Gardens.
So it doesn't end the idea of low-cost housing for, it just delays it and maybe having a look at, so that's what it would potentially do then.
Yeah, if council was approached by the same proponent or a different one to say, here's a different location, council would consider that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick comment on the diocese property. There's a project well down the road on that one, and there'll be a public hearing here on March the 9th on that project with 40-plus affordable housing units, energy efficient affordable housing units. So. And the one on 10th Avenue, I was looking to move in there, but I think the developer got cold feet.
Yeah. So, I mean, people have come to council, they would like to, and then they pulled back, right? So, or they've moved forward. So, thank you very much for the question. Okay, any other questions? Yes. Hi, Jane. Name, phone, the name.
Madam Mayor, Council, staff, Jane Fannin-Schmidt, 2110 Anderson Avenue. And I didn't come prepared to say anything. I wanted to hear what Keith Ambrose had to say and what Mrs. Washington had to say about the Uptown 3rd Avenue. And then on the agenda, up comes this opportunity for a grant for project funding to for the same area. And I'm thinking, this is the horse before the cart. I'm thinking this is where we should go first before we even have that plan for Uptown 3rd, is have some more input. Because as Keith Ambrose said, if it's just to narrow 3rd Avenue to get rid of the trucks, we have a problem. So that's I'm passionate about my town. I love Port Alberni. I never thought I'd say that because I've lived in Tofino for so many years and I love Tofino. And I cried when I had to move here because it was a stinky mill town. But I love Port Alberni now. I never thought I'd say that. My children were raised here and we've all prospered and it's a beautiful place. And we do have some gathering places already. We've had input into our town. We've had investment. We've got Waterfront Park, we've got our Harbor Quay, the Millstone Park, the Victoria Quay. People come to this town, they want to see the water. I don't consider 3rd Avenue, we have Gega Park, that's great, and we can have events there, but it's kind of on a hill. But I see the people gathering at the waterfront, and that's our future. People come to this town, and what can you do? Well, let's go the Quay. And I'm not against, developing 3rd Avenue, but reducing it to 2 lanes and reducing parking. I know that's kind of going off the table, but that's my vision, is to really promote the waterfront. And we have it, and everybody enjoys it. We go down every Wednesday night and listen to music down at in front of the Sugar Shack, and it's beautiful. And we also have 10 months of rain here, and we need covered area. Like, if the Spirit Square was covered, I think it would be a real bonus to Southport. Somewhere to gather that you're not sitting in the rain. Anyways. I think that's everything. I had made a few notes while we were talking, and I love our passion for our town, and carry on. You're doing good.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, anybody else? Okay, motion to adjourn.
You need it. 30 seconds to go.
I know.
Second, Madam Mayor.
All in favor? Counselor Haggard?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Have fun. Okay, motion carried. Everybody